time, the Grapevine Independent School District Board of Trustees and Central Administration will pause for a moment of silence to reflect on the continued successes of our district, the safety and the well-being of our students, our dedicated teachers and staff, and our supportive community. Thank y'all very much. At this time, Louis drew the lucky number, so Trustee Louis Sullins will lead us in the U.S. and Texas pledge.
Please rise for the pledge. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God.
So we just have one recognition, and I'll do that after our Lead 2021 or our Lead 2.0 highlight. So make sure we're going in order. Right. So let's just go straight to the Lead 2.0 highlight. Dr. Schnauts, if you'll take us through that, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Ryan. So tonight we have our Director of Mathematics, Jennifer Heileman, here to just talk about the great things that are taking place within mathematics in our district. One of our characteristics of the portrait of our graduate is a skilled problem solver, and in order to be a skilled problem solver, you have to be strong. You have to have strong foundations in mathematics, and so the great thing is from tonight's presentation, you're going to see that our kiddos are well on their way in establishing that foundation towards being a skilled problem solver with their mathematics. Jennifer?
Thank you, Dr. Schnauts. Good evening, trustees. Thank you guys for some time tonight. Since I was going to update you about mathematics instruction, I thought one of the best ways in which we could do that is for you to hear from those who are experiencing mathematics instruction, our students. So we're going to start by hearing Eva.
It's fun because it helps me get knowledge that will help me do work and get money.
I like challenging myself and hands-on and playing other math games with my friends.
In first grade, we do some addition and subtraction.
Use it in engineering.
Because I like to do meet with teacher.
It helps you prepare for when you go to work, because you're gonna have important problems. Even my mom, and she's a vet, has important times. And plus,
my teacher helps me learn to add numbers, 2-digit numbers on top of each other.
Challenging, and I like to fail, and it's like awesome.
I know how to divide.
It's fun in math workshop because I get to learn math in a fun way.
Because we are challenged here, we stretch out and expand and extend the learning and the knowledge and the coverage.
I used to think math had nothing to do with life, but now I use it every day, so now
I used to think math was boring, but now I think that math is challenging for me and fun.
I used to think math was easy, but sometimes it can be challenging.
Also, I used to think it was just addition, but now it's way more than that.
I used to think that math was a separate subject, and now I realize it's not because I use it in science and social studies and every other subject that I
I used to think math was hard, but now I know math is getting easier for me to do.
I used to think that division was impossible. Now that my class has done problems of math with pictures, Miss Hall says that it's
like division, and I agree. So now I know that division is not impossible.
But also, I used to think that math was just multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting. But now I know there's a whole nother world.
Math was boring, but now I know how to do multiplication.
And I used to think that it was just boring old worksheets, and now I know there's a lot more fun ways to learn math.
I used to think math was really boring, but now it's really fun.
I used to think that math wasn't very helpful, but now I know that if you don't learn math, you aren't fully educated.
I like math in GCISD because I can challenge myself to learn past the traditional path of learning for students and get to express my creativity when solving problems. Unlike other subjects, GCISD provides opportunities to learn additional courses, college courses in mathematics, including AB and BC calculus, as well as multivariable calculus. I wouldn't have been given the chance to take these if I wasn't able to telescope, which means skipping a grade level of math, and taking the combined course, Algebra II Precalculus. It is because of these that I have decided to major in mathematics at the university level.
So we have some great students, and you heard the last student there talk about her experience in math telescoping. So I wanted to update you guys a little bit about math telescoping and where we are in the district. We have over 300 students who are receiving mathematics instruction above their enrolled grade level in mathematics currently. That translates to approximately 3% of our student population. Every year we test twice more, and our assessment department does a fantastic job of setting that up and carrying it out. And here are the results from spring and summer testing. Our guidelines are in board policy about how students can qualify for telescoping by scoring 90% or above for elementary students, 80% or above for secondary students, in line with the Texas law that changed a few years ago. We also have an appeal process for elementary students who score between 80 and 90, wherein we look at more data to determine if a placement is a good idea and make those determinations fairly quickly. But math telescoping is only for about 3% of our population. So these are students who are taking Algebra 1, say somewhere between 5th and 7th grade. Additionally, we offer accelerated math in middle school, and so there are 51% more of our students who are taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So we have this baseline of about 54% of our student population already in Algebra by 8. And so as we look at the rest of our population, I think the video was loud and clear. The students said, math shouldn't be boring. And they told you about some ways in which math has become less boring as they've seen over time. So I want to let you know the things that we've been doing behind the scenes over the past 2 or 3 years that have helped make math less boring for all of our population and have worked towards our goals. So first of all, under the auspices of LEAD 2021, we wanted to put the latest relevant technology in students' hands so that they could masterfully use it by the time they graduate. In graphing calculators, that is the TI Inspire technology, which allows for dynamic graphing instead of just static graphing. Students can manipulate the graphs on the device. You probably also know some app technology that does this that we also use in the classroom called Desmos or GeoGebra. We started off with 2 pilot teachers about 3 school years ago and have added cadres of teachers on, including the 3rd cadre this summer. So we have approximately 38 teachers who have class sets. These devices that their students use, they have software that they can present from, and that software also allows them, along with a little bit of hardware, to network the calculator so that they become a student response device, so that the teacher can send out activities, quizzes, questions for students to answer that they can then respond, and that data gets collected by the teacher and can be used in instruction. So one of the ways in which we make math less boring is putting that latest relevant technology in the hands of students. We've also been training teachers in terms of visible learning. We've started with teachers gaining a lot of clarity around the standards, and their work in that resulted in these most important learning goals in mathematics for each grade level or course. Anywhere from 4 to 7 most important learning goals were identified by groups of teachers, vetted by their PLCs who weren't able to come to training, and then summarized by my team in these documents. In the elementary level, we also have a side of the document that gives parents an idea of what they can do to support math most important learning goals. These aren't the only things we teach. In Texas, we're bound to teach all the standards, but we do teach these to assure that 100% of students reach mastery of these goals. That 100% mastery is one of the things that's going to be really important as we look at our future goals for students reaching Algebra by 8. Because if students aren't mastering everything that we need them to in first grade or second grade or fourth or fifth grade, they're not going to be interested or inclined or perhaps even prepared to take accelerated mathematics in middle school, which is our current route towards algebra in grade 8. So this is one step towards that direction. Students mastering 100%, teachers believing that 100% of students can master these things. And if they can master these most important learning goals, what's to say they can't master all the learning goals? And so starting to shift those mindsets in the classroom. Training teachers in visible learning. John Hattie has done a ton of work over years that has been collected into several publications. We're working with visible learning for mathematics to train teachers in the learning cycle that includes surface learning, to deep learning, to transfer learning. And in investigating this with teachers over the past school year, we've got lots of surface and deep learning going on. Where we're starting to miss the boat is in transfer learning, that ability of the student to more independently apply their knowledge by bringing what they know conceptually and the skills they have together in new and novel situations. It's not something we struggle with in GCISD alone. It's something that students struggle with across the globe. And so how can we better prepare students to be able to transfer that learning? That's something that we're looking at as we're training teachers, to create what John Hattie calls assessment-capable learners. Not that they are ready for STAR and those standardized multiple choice tests that we know are one measure of how a student can do, but that students are able to assess their own capability to use the mathematics in new and novel situations because they have such command and mastery of the material to be able to know when they're using it correctly and when they're struggling with it. Finally, the work to come is going to be in helping students form mathematical identity. This is a very hot topic in math education right now. Several of our keynote speakers at the conference for the advancement of mathematical teaching talked about students' formulation of mathematical identity and that they don't form it in isolation. We don't form any part of our identity in isolation. Who we are is a product of who our parents thought we were and what we were able to do and what opportunities we had. Same thing for mathematical identity. Students' mathematical identity is not only how they see themselves in mathematics, but how they perceive others see them as well. And so can they see themselves in the mathematics they're learning? And do they have authentic opportunities to contribute to the learning and the power to learn new mathematics? Do they feel like they have to be spoon-fed, or do they see that they are able to learn new things with the teacher as the guide on the side rather than the sage on the stage? Part of students seeing themselves in mathematics may be having exemplars in front of them like Katherine Johnson or Albert Einstein, and understand that there are great opportunities that are out there, and that if even Albert Einstein struggled in mathematics, it's probably okay if I do too. It doesn't mean that struggle is going to last forever. In fact, we want that struggle, but we want it to be productive struggle. And that's what we're leaning towards as we instruct students in mathematics and make it exciting and engaging for students. Thank you, guys.
I'm sure we have questions for you. Chrissy?
Yeah, a couple of questions. If you could go back a couple of slides. I was curious on the telescoping.
Yes.
Do we have a breakdown in terms of gender of those students?
It's a great
Boys
question.
and girls, and do we have that breakdown?
That's not data I've run, but I'd be happy to run it for you and get you to it. I can tell you anecdotally that in early grade levels, we probably have more boys identified in testing than girls. I think it's something that is more societal in nature, that when boys are disengaged in class, they tend to act out, whereas when girls are disengaged in class, they tend to be more compliant. And so it's sometimes easier to identify boys in need of higher mathematics instruction than it is girls, and that's something that we're working on as well.
Okay. And then you're also always wanting to make sure that girls are involved with math and science.
Absolutely.
And trying to increase those numbers, and I was just curious to see that breakdown. So if you could get that to us, I would be very interested in just seeing that breakdown.
Absolutely. I'll also include a breakdown of our enrollment in Algebra 1 and Grade 8.
Please.
Because that was one of the things that I tackled this last year, was seeing that disparity in earlier grades. Does it ever shift? And we have about a 50-50 ratio of females to males in that Algebra 1 enrollment.
Yeah, and if you could take it one step further, also, I'd like to see that breakdown for students of color as well.
Absolutely.
And if you could do that, that would be very interesting to see that.
Can do.
Okay, and then if you could go on to your next slide, the one after this.
This one?
On the cadres, is this a voluntary thing that teachers sign up for?
Great question. Yes, we did ask for volunteers. We had 2 pilot teachers, and then each year it's been an application process. Part of that is following the model that was so successful with digital classrooms. The other mitigating factor is use of bond funds to be able to purchase these. We have been using bond funds, and we've had great success in doing that, but those funds are limited, and so that's caused me to have to limit the number of teachers involved each year.
And then these graphing calculators are just for classroom use during the day, correct? I mean, so students aren't able to check them out and take them home or anything?
Correct. They're not able to check out and take these home. The older models that have static graphing technology, those are able to be checked out at campuses. My long-term vision with this would be to have the software that goes with this available on each student computer, but that was one of those mitigating factors with bond funds. If we'd been able to have as big a bond as we had ever wanted, we have completely done that. But because we had limited funds, we decided to go ahead and do the devices in the classroom, since those can be used in the testing environment as well, as opposed to trying to do the software instead.
So what's the magic number of teachers that you're looking to get trained in terms of?
We are about halfway there. Probably 70-ish teachers would cover all of our secondary math teachers who touch students who would use graphing calculator technology in the assessments they would be taking on a state and national level.
Okay. And then my last question, in terms of John Hattie's work, if
Yes, sir.
you'll move to that. Talk to me a little in terms of the professional development that's tied into this. I mean, I understand, and I've read a lot of his work, and Nancy Fry and Doug Fisher and all that. But I guess my question is, how do we do that here in our school district as far as PD's concerned?
So that has been through our math vertical team. So we have pulled out teachers twice a year and then worked through PLCs on the campus level thereafter. This year, because we had the ability to do so, we had a collaboration day that was additional, in which the teachers took what they had learned during the 2 math vertical team days and applied it to changes in our curriculum that are currently being implemented.
And that's across district, I mean, across campuses and across grades?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, Jorge?
You said that we would have 50% of our students are mastering algebra in 8th grade?
Are enrolling in algebra, and it's very rare for an 8th grade student to fail the course.
Okay, but you're saying that you want 100% of them at some point to.
I understand that's one of our goals as a district, yes, sir.
Okay, so how long will it take us to do that, do you think?
It's not a short process. It's not an 8th grade issue. It goes all the way down. And so if that's truly something we want to pursue as a district, I think we need to do a couple of things. Look at all the research around it to make sure it really is a good idea for all students. We know that it's great for students to have as much exposure to mathematical content as possible. And so in that sense, it's a great idea. However, is that the place to accelerate, or do we have other acceleration options that can happen in high school in addition to that? The other thing we need to look at, and I think this Math Most Important Learning Goals is a good first step, is if we can get to mastery for all students in those grade levels leading up to, it will naturally start to happen, but that's going to take some time to get to.
Any other questions? Becky?
So in the same vein as the Algebra 1, do you know how many kids we have that are completing Algebra 2?
Almost 100% of our students in district complete Algebra 2 because we still require it for graduation.
Okay. So they're still getting up to Algebra 2.
Oh, definitely.
They just might not be taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade. Well, half of them right now aren't taking Algebra 1. Okay.
That's correct. Is that it?
Yeah.
So I guess
I'm just trying to understand. I understand we had this goal, or we had discussed this mastery of reading, third grade level. But just following up on Becky's question, is the timing of Algebra 1 important, or is it more getting kids to finish like pre-calculus in high school? Like which one, like I'm trying to think, why is the timing that critical as long as everybody finishes pre-calculus? Just to put something above Algebra 2. I don't know if you guys have thought about that, because maybe calculus might be too much of a goal for all students, but maybe pre-calculus might be it. And I don't know, you really need that. Maybe you need Algebra 1 in August in 8th grade to do that. I don't know how to you think about it, but you have geometry and Algebra 2, and then you have pre-calculus. So that means that you have, you get Algebra 1 in 9th grade, you could still do pre-calculus at the 12th grade.
Yes, sir.
So the timing, unless pre-calculus we don't think is what should be the goal for all the kids. I don't know. Just trying to think why Algebra 1 in 8th grade is as important as maybe pre-calculus in 12th grade.
And I think that's some great research that we can embark upon as we look towards trying to determine whether this goal is stated in the way that we want to meet it long term.
Because for me, one thing that I'm concerned is if students are going through the trade route and not the college route. Like I have like relatives that went the trade route and then they learn and they decided to go to college. And in terms of math, should we be pushing for a pre-calculus? Because if those kids, they might not need it when they go to a trade, but they might need it if they want to decide to go to college later. And I'm just thinking, what would be that goal for our kids? Maybe a calculus might be more of an engineering type of thing, and maybe you don't need that, but maybe pre-calculus could be it. If that person doesn't decide to go to college right after high school, but maybe they change their mind at some point, and they might not have that baseline to jump into college at some point.
Yeah, and that's part of why we still require Algebra 2 for graduation, is because we don't want to box any student out of the possibility of college admission, regardless of when they decide to enroll in college. Pre-Cal is the next natural course in sequence after Algebra 2. It's not the only course you can take after Algebra 2. And so if students are headed down a road towards calculus, I could see pre-calculus as the next option.
Is Algebra 2 still the minimum required for college?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Becky?
No.
No?
Great presentation.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
So as we transition, if you don't mind, I would like to insert one small recognition. We have a principal in our midst who has been a principal in our district for several years, and she's done a tremendous job at Grapevine Elementary School. And excuse me, earlier in the summer, when Shelley Ingram left Timberline Elementary School, we tapped Liz Hilcher on the shoulder and said, "Liz, would you be interested in taking on a challenge?" And she said, absolutely she would. And so I just want to recognize it was a transfer of principalship over to a different principalship, and so did not require board approval, but since we have several principals on the agenda tonight for your consideration, I thought it would be appropriate that we ask Liz and her family to join us so that we could recognize her for her, first of all, good work in the district as a teacher at Silver Lake Elementary School, and then as an assistant principal at O.C. Taylor and a principal at Grapevine Elementary School. And then now she's worked really hard this summer getting to know the good folks at Timberline, and we're just really proud of the work that she's doing. Liz, can I call upon you just to come to the podium for a second? Thank you. I know. Usually the principals are the folks who get to pick on others, but
I phone a friend.
so
Yes, sir.
so Liz, I just want to say first of all publicly thank you for stepping up. That's what we do in GCISD, is when we see a challenge, we step up and we lead, and you're certainly personifying that this evening. And you got some folks that are with you that are really important, so I wanted you to be able to recognize them and the support folks that you have at home, and anything else that you might want to add.
No, my biggest cheerleader is Lance, my husband. He's been through there since I walked out of college and got my first job at Silver Lake, all the way till now. So I thank him very much. And then Logan is a product of Colleyville Heritage Middle and Silver Lake herself, and she's leaving in less than 21 days. We will not talk about that anymore. And then Maddie is going to be a sophomore at Grapevine High School, and then Emery is going to be a 6th grader at Cross Timber. So lots of new adventures for the Hilcher children this year. So, but very excited. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I've met with almost 50 of the staff for 30 minutes each. As of this afternoon, and just the passion that comes from the teachers that work there. I'm so excited to hit the ground running with them and a new team this week. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to the Hilcher family for being here. We've got other folks that we'll talk about a little bit later. Logan, give me an advertisement. Where are you going to college?
Oklahoma State.
That's what I know. Okay. All right, that's good. Go Pokes. We're proud of you.
Thank you.
There's still hope for the other two, but that's all right.
That's right.
He's the one you got first.
There you go. There you go.
Congratulations.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. What a great recognition. We're excited to have you at Timberline, and I know within the community, there's a lot of community involvement at Timberline, as many of our other schools. So I know that they're excited as well. So we'll move on to
If I may
open.
say one.
You may.
You will have Louis Sullins as the official board liaison. However, if you want to change your mind, you're more than welcome.
We worked together, what, 2 years ago? Or my first year, no, my first year on the board. I was your liaison at Grapevine Elementary.
Oh, good.
And I'll bring you some maroon.
Oh, goodness. Move on to open forum, but do we have anyone signed up for open forum? Move on to the public hearing, performance of the optional flexible school day program.
Yes, the Board of Trustees is required annually to hold a public hearing concerning the performance of the optional flexible school day program in accordance with Texas Education Code 29.0822. And I'll ask Dr. Schnautz to take us through this real quickly.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. So again, the purpose of this hearing is to review our 18-19 data of our OFSDP. Chapter 29, Section 0822 says that a school district may apply to the commissioner for the optional flexible school day program to provide a flexible school day program for students who meet one of the 3 criteria. First is have dropped out of school or at risk of dropping out of school as defined by Chapter 29, Section 0881. Number 2, attend a campus that is implementing an innovative redesign of the campus or an early college high school under a plan approved by the commissioner. Or number 3, as a result of attendance requirements under Chapter 25, Section 092, will be denied credit for one or more classes in which the students have been enrolled. And so if you can take a look at page 6, the spreadsheet giving the 18-19 OFSDP data, you will see our numbers for the Hope Academy at Grapevine High School, the Panther Academy at Colleyville Heritage High School, our Bridges numbers, and Collegiate Academy. That totaled up to this year 66 students who took advantage of the OFSDP program. You know, when you look at the Hope Academy and the Panther Academy, along with Bridges, typically those students utilize that program for the criterion 1 and 3, either they're at risk of dropping out or they are struggling meeting the compulsory attendance requirements. And then 2, the 56 at Collegiate Academy, those guys qualify for this program because it is an early college high school. And I do want to point out that this year is the first year that we've included our Collegiate Academy students. And so if you remember last year, I think our number was somewhere around 10 or 11, 12. Well, this year we were able to include our seniors at Collegiate Academy. Because the key word here, guys, is flexible. Mm-hmm. All right. This program It provides flexibility in students, at Collegiate Academy who are receiving their high school diploma and their associate in the areas of travel. Many of our students work part-time or even full-time. Flexibility on when they complete assignments or when they are taking their coursework. And then we have some students who have some responsibilities to take care of family members or are dealing with some medical issues. And this program affords them opportunities that they wouldn't necessarily get in a traditional setting. So 52 of the 56 you see at Collegiate received their associates, and that's something that's to be commended. I will also say this too, and I mentioned flexibility. One of the neat things that Bobby shared with me, there are 3 students at Collegiate who we also have a partnership with University of Texas at Arlington, and we have 3 students of this 56 who this year were able to take another course. They went took class at Collegiate Monday and Wednesday and took another course at UTA Tuesday, Thursday. And so that course that 3-hour course at UTA cost them just $150 because of that partnership. And so they were able to really capitalize on some tremendous opportunities. As I mentioned with our Hope Academy, our Panther Academy, and Bridges, this provides, in many cases, kind of the last resort and the last hope for those kiddos. And this is where we're able to really realize some tremendous success stories, for kiddos to cross the finish line here in GCISD and set them up for the next phase of life. Basically, this program allows for our students to meet full-time ADA requirements of traditional students in just half the time. And so, again, we're so fortunate that this program is able to afford these kiddos these opportunities. So at this time, I'll take any questions you may have.
Jesse?
Brad, let me ask you, in terms of the numbers, refresh my memory, how do we qualify these individuals, these young men and women?
Yeah, so again, on Chapter 29, Section 0822, these are for students who have dropped out of high school or at risk of dropping out of high school as defined by Chapter 29, Section the Texas Education Code here, or kiddos that attend the early college high school and they need that flexibility in taking that coursework, or students that are in trouble basically meeting the compulsory attendance requirements. And so you're able to basically take, say, Brad Schnautz, who's coded as a traditional student, and move him over in the OFSDP coding so that now he's kind of a part-time, on a flexible schedule.
But who does that? Is that the principal, or is that the counselor that identifies a teacher, or?
I think it's everybody. It's everybody who is a part of that child's education, who sees the need, who sees that a student is at risk or struggling, and it's an option, it's an opportunity, it's an alternative. And again, it's not for everybody, but it does for the kiddos that it fits and matches up with. It's kind of a very good lifeline for those kiddos.
Is this something that we would look to expand to try to identify more students, or are we doing?
So that's a great question. We will continue to tap into this for our collegiate students. I had a good conversation with Lindsay Hopkins over at Bridges, and she's looking at ways to expand that for her Bridges students, because what she has found in talking with her student body is that some of her students are working. They have a part-time job, but they're looking to expand that role, and because they need to go full-time for family responsibilities. And so how can they adjust that schedule to where they can, they can be a student, work towards their high school diploma, but also have a full-time job and be successful in both.
And last question, is there any form of or type of follow-up that we do with these youngsters to identify, if you were using metrics to identify the success of a program, is there any way that we identify or follow up with these students to find out what's happened after they?
As far as a formal follow-up, are you talking about after they?
Yeah.
That I will have to check into. As far as a reporting of those numbers. I know with Shannon, you know, we have the grad finder and whatnot. I will touch base with her and explore that and provide that information in like a board update.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Out of curiosity, I
Yeah.
think that would be very good for us to, if we
Absolutely.
have that capability, we'll be able to do that.
Right.
Any other questions? It is a public hearing, so we have no one signed up to speak. So that will close that public hearing, and we'll move on to the reports of the superintendent. Item A has been pulled, is that correct, Dr. Ryan?
Yes, item A is pulled from consideration this evening.
Okay.
Let's go to item B.
Move on to item B, act on the recommendation for Cannon Elementary, a GCISD STEM school, the principal.
So one of the most important things that we do as senior administration in this district is to help select our leaders at the campuses. And Cannon Elementary is certainly one of our shining stars in GCISD, and so the leadership of Cannon is vitally important. Tonight I will be recommending Tina Garrett in that position. Tina has been our associate principal at Grapevine High School in charge of STEM. She has an extensive STEM background, but most importantly, she is Grapevine High School graduate. So, you know, she and there was only one school at the time, right, Tina? So Lance is nothing against the Panthers. I'm right there with you. And then has also taught at Silver Lake, started her teaching career at Silver Lake Elementary, and then moved to New Orleans, then to Mississippi, where, strangely enough, she won the state championship in volleyball as a coach, and runner-up the year after that, right? And so a fantastic run in Mississippi. Then back to Garland, where she was in the STEM program, and then over the science department at Garland before moving to Grapevine High School. So not only roots in GCISD, but certainly a strong STEM background, been a fantastic leader for us, and we're really excited to recommend Tina to you this evening. So the recommendation is for the Board of Trustees to approve Tina Garrett as the principal of Cannon Elementary School, a GCISD STEM school.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Have a recommendation. Do I have a motion? Jesse?
Yes, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation, please.
And a second?
I'll second.
Louis, thank you very much. And discussion?
Just, I have a question though. Was David Denning principal then too?
That would age quite a few of us, so I will say no.
I just thought I'd ask. I'm just asking. Almost there.
Oh, goodness. Any questions? Any other? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Congratulations and welcome.
Tina, I'm going to pick on you now. Yeah. So if you'll approach, welcome to GCISD. I know you have a daughter at Cannon. You want to talk about anything else or introduce anybody in the audience that might be here, or have any kind of introductory remarks?
Just want to say thank you for this opportunity. I'm thrilled to lead in GCISD in this capacity. STEM is my passion. To hear tonight, two of my Mustang coworkers, close friends, are here, Tiffany Cunningham and Eileen Antonone, and of course Mr. Denning, who has just been a rock and a supporter to me and my growth. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm thrilled and I'm honored.
Well, I appreciate your bravery. Following Tona Blizzard is not an easy task, but you're up for it. And as I told the staff today, as I was introducing you as the recommended candidate today, I said, you know, this is about everybody working together, and so I know that that's your philosophy as well, and we want to wish you well, and we'll support you in every way that we can.
My daughter, I promised my daughter I wouldn't pick on her, so I will not pick on my daughter. But she'll be glad to see me in the hallways, but not glad to be in my office.
What grade is she in?
She'll be in 5th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. move on to.
I'd just like to point out first, we didn't clap for Liz, so we need to clap for her.
I thought we did.
No, we didn't.
Oh,
No.
I apologize.
I left it up to Louie and.
We'll all stand up for you if you. No. We are as equally excited about you. Now, we go on the next two. You see there's a pattern here, so the following two need to be ready.
I see the sweat, Nancy.
Yeah, I
right
do.
there.
Move on to item C, act on recommendation for the Grapevine Elementary School principal.
So when Ms. Hilcher did take the position at Timberline, that left a position open as the principal at Grapevine Elementary School. One of the sayings that I have is that you interview for your next job every day you go to work. This person is an example of that. She's been a teacher, a liaison, and an assistant principal, all three at Grapevine Elementary School, and has a background from Florida, where her mom is a principal, I believe, right? So it's kind of in the blood, and so Nancy certainly has done a tremendous job of earning the privilege of the recommendation for Grapevine Elementary School. So the recommendation is for the Board of Trustees to approve the recommendation of Nancy Hale for Grapevine Elementary School principal.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept Dr. Ryan's recommendation.
Thank you, Doug. And a second? I'll second. Becky, thank you so much. Any discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor. Motion carries 6-0.
Congratulations, Nancy. I don't know why you're still sitting there. So I know that you have somebody to introduce and talk a little bit about your family, and I just want to welcome you as the principal of Grapevine Elementary.
Thank you all so much. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity. Have loved getting to work under Liz's leadership and learned so much during my time here in Grapevine, Colleyville. And I have my husband here with me, my biggest supporter, Trey. And our two kiddos are at home. We did not think that everyone would appreciate their extracurriculars if we were trying to keep them through bedtime. So McKinley, our daughter, will be joining me at Grapevine in pre-K next year. So very excited about that. And little Walker is at ECDC. So huge blessing to be in GCISD and to have those opportunities for them as well. So thank you guys.
So it was a pretty interesting experience when we introduced Nancy to the staff as the recommendation. Of course, Grapevine Elementary has got a few things happening right now as far as construction goes, so we met in this room, and Nancy and Trey were traveling, right? Yes. So the whole family was there. You were like
I was on an RV.
In an RV.
In an RV going up
she Skyped in to the whole crew and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was pretty fun time. In fact, she was Skyped, and then when I announced her, I turned it around for the big reveal, and then there she was, and everybody clapped and had a fantastic reaction to that. So congratulations.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
Now, was David your principal?
No. No, sir. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to carrying the message of GCISD.
Thank you. We're glad you're there. Thank you. And the other one's not moving either, Dr. Ryan.
Well, he will.
Okay. Maybe he's worried. Move on to item D, act on the recommendation for the Heritage Middle School principal.
Yes, so we had a vacancy at Heritage Middle School that we filled, we're recommending to fill with Dr. James Whitfield. Dr. Whitfield has been a principal in Birdville at a middle school level. Also was a coach at Richland, I believe, and then took a little time to work for Capturing Kids' Hearts, which is a fantastic organization, and then came back and joined GCISD last year as an assistant principal at Collier Heritage High School. Made an immediate impact to the campus in a very positive way. At graduation, you might remember, it was pretty common for principals, like the high school principals that we have, to get applause at graduation. Not so much really on assistant principals, but when he was introduced, there was a huge applause there, and that's because of the relationships that he builds with students, but just in a very short amount of time. And so we are proud to recommend Dr. Whitfield as the principal. I want to make sure that I read it correctly. Recommendations for the Board of Trustees to approve the recommendation of Dr. James Whitfield as the Heritage Middle School principal.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Do I have a motion for the recommendation?
I'll make a motion that we accept Dr. Ryan's recommendation for Dr. James Whitfield for HMS.
Thank you, Louie. And a second? Jesse?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Congratulations.
So our future problem as he makes the way to the microphone is that I knew the brevity that was going to happen with the first two. I'm concerned about the brevity with Dr. Whitfield. And I know that you have a little one that is not feeling well at home, and so we're sorry that your family could not be introduced tonight, but we know that they support you in this work. And Dr. Whitfield, any other comments that you might want to make?
I'm just honored and thrilled to be here. Thank you all for the opportunity. I've already met with the majority of the staff at HMS. I'm just excited to get started. Like you said, my wife is home with our little 6-year-old, Landon. He's been sick with the fever the last few days, so that's her way of supporting me, right? Stepping up. But you know what? I've got my best friend here to support me. He came just tonight for me, Dr. Lance Grover. So thank you for supporting me and being here for me. That's all it is right there. But yes, thank you guys so much. I look forward to the opportunity. Forward to seeing you guys around in the community. If I can do anything for you guys, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
All I can say is I love your haircut.
And we're not going to ask if Lance was your principal. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's been a great evening. I think we can almost call this an evening.
Yeah. That's work.
Very much.
Yep.
We are very excited to have the new principals here with us tonight, and we say this to everyone, but we'll say this to y'all while you're here. Please know that we are here to support you, and we are here to do whatever you need. So all you have to do is reach out to us, and as your different liaisons and as your Board of Trustees, we are always here to support whatever your needs are. So congratulations, and again, we can't wait to see the great things you do with your new schools. So congratulations. So we will now move on to item E, act on recommendations for TASB official delegate designation.
Yes, item E, the TASB official delegate designation. The Texas Association of School Boards does have an official delegates representatives, and only board members of TASB, active members of public schools and service centers may serve as delegates or alternates. Recommendations for the Board of Trustees to approve Jesse Rodriguez as GCISD's official delegate and Doug Noel as the alternate delegate for the TASB Delegate Assembly.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for the recommendation?
I move we accept Dr. Ryan's recommendation.
Thank you. In a second,
I'll
Louis.
second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing.
Yeah, the only thing I would just, remind each of us is why we do this. TASB is very much a grassroots process, and it's run by the volunteer trustees. And so the duties that Jesse will have at convention, as will I, because I have an automatic seat as a member of the legislative committee, we're going to be voting on any appointments to the TASB board for the different regions. And there are a number of contested races, so that's going to be something that we'll have to take a look at. And then since I just got back from the TASB board meeting, there are going to be a number of resolutions that are going to be presented at convention to be voted on as well. So we will have work to do at convention, and that's our opportunity as a whole body of every school district, every trustee that represents that school district, all 1,038, to have a voice in the process of what TASB does. So thank you, Jesse, for being our delegate. And Doug, you get to sit outside the fence there and hang around for all that if you want to.
Yeah.
But it is indeed a very important role, so.
It is.
It really is.
And you'll receive your information in the packet that goes with it. But I thought, what a great time that just because you're an alternate, you still go.
Yep.
And just shadow Jesse and see exactly, so next year we can flip it, maybe look at flipping it when you go as that delegate. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, too.
Should I go to the podium now?
We want to get through tonight.
Oh,
so-
okay.
Yeah.
Well, they all did.
I was just worried you were gonna vote
Move on
against
to
that.
item F.
Thank you.
iUniversity prep course approval addendum. Dr. Ryan?
Yes, so as the board knows, one of our initiatives has been for our folks at iUniversity Prep to author our own courses so that we can reduce some of the cost of buying those courses from other vendors. And so I believe that most of what you're looking at tonight are courses that are in that situation. We do have Dr. Rogers here who can answer any questions that we have about the approval of this addendum. The recommendations for the Board of Trustees to approve the courses listed in the attachment as GCISD approved online courses.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Do I have a motion?
I move to accept Dr. Ryan's recommendation.
Thank you, Doug. A second? Becky, thank you so much. Discussion? Jesse?
I probably will abstain from this vote. However, prior to the vote, I would like to be able to ask a couple of questions for clarification, if the board would so permit me to do so.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Question, when we talk about, says the following courses have been modified and deemed to be, and then we list those, by modifying, that's what we're talking about, right? I mean, they're current to reflect the latest TEKS and the alignment. Okay, so that's, all right. Then my other question, and this might result in my abstention, are all of these courses Pearson learning?
So, Kay, could you approach, please, so I want to make sure that we understand your question. All the ones that we're approving tonight are Pearson?
These courses are Pearson courses that are not completely aligned, so they have to go through reapproval process through the district. We have had to modify their courses, so it will only be approved for our students, not for other Pearson people who purchase those courses.
Okay, and based on that, let me ask you, it also says on here that they are now 100% TEKS aligned. It also says it's also compliant with the 508 as well as INALCO. My question is, given the fact that some of our students might, and maybe you can clarify this for me, that some of our students might be athletes, do we have anything in terms of NCAA compliance?
Yes, sir. All of our courses are NCAA approved.
Okay, it just didn't state that, and that's the reason I was curious whether indeed they are in the event that we have.
Yes, sir.
So they are?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We have several students that are in that category.
We have quite a few athletes that this is important to.
Right, right. Okay, I was just curious as to whether we had that, because I didn't see it listed, and that's why I was curious to find out whether they indeed are.
That's a different approval process.
Right.
And so this would just be for them to be approved through TEA for this criteria. But those
Okay,
are
but
already
then
approved, those would already be approved and not be contingent on this right here.
Okay, so you're saying though that it has gone through the NCAA?
Yes, we're fine with NCAA.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
we're fine there.
Mhm.
And then all we're doing here is pending approval from TEA for these ones we
Being
had.
completely aligned.
Got you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You have an issue?
No, I just wanted to make sure I understood exactly what the board was gonna vote on. And also the fact that it is indeed Pearson Learning.
Okay.
And because of that, I will indeed abstain.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 5-0 with Jesse abstaining.
Yeah. And I would like to say, and for the record also, that it's not that I have anything against Pearson Learning here. It's just that given the fact that my job deals with publishing companies, I would rather
I appreciate
abstain.
that.
So,
I appreciate
it's just
that
for the
very much.
record, so.
Okay. Thank you, Jesse.
Mhm.
Move on to item G, act on donation from Brantford Elementary School.
Yes, as we know, Brantford is an arts integration school for their personalized program, and the Brantford PTA has been extremely supportive of that arts integration program. Tonight's donation from the PTA is film equipment for actually to complete a film studio. The value is about $10,657. The equipment is listed there starting on page 18. Recommendations for the Board of Trustees to accept the donation of film studio equipment valued at $10,657 from the Brantford Elementary PTA.
Do you have a motion?
I move that we accept the donation from the Brantford PTA.
Thank you, Doug. In a second?
I'll second.
Louis, thank you so much. Do we have anybody here from Brantford? Any of the parents? I see some parents back there. None? That's just a lot of fundraising. And that is just a very small part of what they have raised this year, so thank them very much.
It's amazing. It's awesome.
Any questions, any comments? Do what?
It looks, the equipment list looks really fun. We might need a demonstration.
I think so. That is great. All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Item H, approve appropriation of the undesignated 2005 interest earnings on bond funds to cover the deductible associated with the damage caused by the weather event on June 16th, 2019.
Yeah, so Father's Day was interrupted by a flash flood, and so the flood actually, the water went into the gymnasium at Cross Timbers before it quickly receded. Covered the floor in about 2 inches of water, and gym floors are allergic to water. And so it's just a really devastating situation. Last time I looked at it, there was about a 3.5-foot mound from one end to the other in the middle of the gym floor. So it's been quite the problem. Paula and her team have done a tremendous job, and including some folks that left their families on Father's Day evening to come help us deal with that for several hours that evening. So we hope to bring some of those folks to the board for recognition in the month of August for their work above and beyond. But Paula, I'll let you talk a little bit about more about this item, please.
Okay. So as a part of that, obviously, we have the gym floor to replace, and we've been in the process of looking at proposals for that through some of the existing cooperatives to try to expedite the process. I don't necessarily have a schedule for that, but we are nearing being able to make that decision. Obviously, our team did respond on that evening to help extract water. Later, or in the next day, Blackman Mooring was then brought in to begin the disinfecting process. Fortunately, it was locker rooms and just some minor furniture that was in that area that they had to take care of. Our facility staff took care of washing and disinfecting some of the clothing that was still in the area, if you will. And then kind of as a byproduct of that and the amount of water, there are 2 chain link fences, one closer to the older batting cages at Grapevine High School that was affected, and a tree that needed to be removed, as well as one over by Cross Timbers. And so those are some of the expenses for which we have estimates. Replacement has not necessarily begun. Obviously, Blackman Mooring has been in. The tree has been removed. Our concentration has been on working with regard to the gym replacement, and then we'll move to the fence repairs and get that taken care of. So as Dr. Ryan said, this is a request to make the appropriation of our deductible for the initial claim as we get moving with TASB on this particular. And of course, the adjuster has to review all of our proposals as we receive those. And so that's kind of the status of where we are. Tonight is about the appropriation.
Thank you, Paula. The recommendations for the Board of Trustees to approve the appropriation of $100,000 from undesignated 2005 interest earnings on bond funds to cover the deductible associated with replacing or repairing damage caused by the weather event of June the 16th, 2019.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Do I have a motion for the recommendation? Jesse?
Yes, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation, please.
Thank you. In a second? Becky, thank you. Discussion? Jesse?
Yeah, Paul, just have a question, and I know this was unusual in terms of the rain and all of that, but is there anything that we need to look at in terms of trying to prevent that from reoccurring? In other words, I know we can't do anything about the rain. It's gonna rain if it rains a bunch, but is there anything that we can do to knowing what happened this time, is there anything that we could do to that to kind of minimize that damage the next time it happens, if it does happen?
That is something that we've talked about and want to explore in terms of how quickly water rises out of that creek, in particular the corner there closest to Cross Timbers Middle School. So that is something that we have to take a look at. And then, of course, at some point in time, if we can determine with our architects and engineers what an appropriate remedy would be for that, or at least something that would help to keep more water at bay, depending on the size of the event and the amount of rain that happens, you know, just trying to do our best to keep this from occurring again. We would have to look at an appropriation, obviously, to try to do some kind of work like that, because that's not anything that we have necessarily outlined in a bond program right now. So, but it is something that we do feel like we need to take a look at, given where that gym sits in relationship to that creek. And as you know, really over the course of the last few years, we've had quite a bit of drainage work that's been completed at Grapevine High School.
Right.
We've had work that's been completed in the creek, and it was just one of those things where I think literally by the time I saw the first picture and saw how high the water was and was getting, and by the time Dr. Ryan arrived, it had already receded, but it was just that fast. And it had to do with the amount of water that you all were receiving. I was obviously out of, not here, but yes, something that would try to keep water away from that corner, which is kind of low over there by the creek.
It happened one other time, but that was, I know since I've been on the board, so, but that, 10 years ago?
Yes, ma'am.
It's 2000.
Nine and a half years ago.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
It's
and
not- it's very rare.
That was the year we had water over Highway 26 that you couldn't pass.
No, and I understand that. The only reason I was asking about it was because since we were looking at the issue with the parking lot at Grapevine High School, you know, in terms of that area, that we're gonna look to resolve that issue with the groundwater and, you know, that's a separate thing. I know that, but I'm just saying, while we're looking at that, would this be something, the timing on it, for us to look at something, possibly doing something across Timber?
There wouldn't be any way to put that in there with that. It's gonna take some review.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Honestly, and some deeper engineering evaluation about what can be done.
Okay, I would just.
And I suspect that some entity outside of ourselves at some point is probably gonna ask us to do something to
Okay.
try to help prevent it from happening.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions, Doug?
It only affected the main gym, right? The black
Yes, sir.
gym, but it did not affect the silver one?
That's correct.
They're on the same level though, aren't they?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
I think they might be a couple of inches
Right.
different, and the smaller gym is is not as close to the creek.
Further distance.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
I'm walking through there, I've never noticed an incline, but, I mean, there's not one.
right,
I think
yeah, it's,
small.
Okay, but the locker rooms are gonna be, they're ready for students? The other gym's ready? It's just that one main gym that's gonna be refurbished and kids can't use it for
That's
the
correct.
first
I was gonna ask how
month,
long.
two?
Yeah,
Do you know
we're
how long?
looking. Several, oh,
so I'm gonna tell you end of semester so that I look good when we finish it, way before that, but, one of the things they're having to do is source the wood, and right now, everybody's replacing gym floors, and, definitely we would be done, I believe, by Thanksgiving break, because we've got to have a good window of opportunity. School's gonna get kickoff, but, we're gonna work very hard with these contractors to try to do it before that. We know how important it is for our campus to have that, as well as our park and rec programs to have that gym. I mean, it impacts a lot. So they're working with we have to first land on a company and then really work to see how quickly. And part of their ability to get the wood and move quickly into this may be a determining factor, not solely cost.
and I believe you
Thank you.
said you've already been working on rescheduling or
Yes.
relocating volleyball and.
They have all been doing that, yes.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Move on to item I, approve change order number 1 for bid package 1, renovations to Grapevine Middle School, Heritage Middle School, renovations and new classrooms for Timberline Elementary School.
Yeah, we have several items, the next few items on the agenda are similar in nature, and so I'll ask Paula to take us through each one at a time.
Okay. So the first one, of course, is the renovation and the additional classrooms that we added to 2 of the campuses that we began in 2017. It's nice to finally be able to get to this point where we are starting to close these out. So the process here is a deductive change order. When they've done the reconciliation of all costs and expenses, and there's a return of money in this particular case for the first one that you have here, change order number 1. So it was the only change order on the project. It is returning contingency funds that were not used but were a part of the construction contract. So what you're approving is that change order, and for basically that money to be released back to the district. This doesn't mean that we have necessarily signed off on a final completion, but it is the next step in process so that this contractor can submit their final pay application and receive retainage, which they owe to subcontractors that perform work on these projects. So the next 2, we'll get to which campuses are involved there, but that's generally the same thing for this and the next 2 items.
Thank you, Paula. The recommendations for Board of Trustees to approve deductive change order number 01 for bid package 1, which included renovations for Grapevine Middle School, Heritage Middle School, and renovations and 6 new classrooms for Timberline Elementary School, and returns $198,622.79 to the district.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Do I have a motion for the recommendation?
I move we accept Dr. Ryan's recommendation.
Thank you, Becky. And a second? Second, Doug. Thank you so much. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Move on to item J, approve change order number 001 for the Grapevine High School Auditorium Sound Booth Project.
So this, of course, is in the auditorium at GHS. Paula, anything else you'd like to add for that?
No, sir.
Okay. The recommendations for Board of Trustees to approve the deductive change order number 001 for the Grapevine High School Auditorium Sound Booth Project, and returns $2,405.14 to the district.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Do I have a motion for the recommendation?
So moved.
Becky, thank you. A second?
I think.
Thank you, Jorge. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Move on to item K, approve change order 002 for the Timberline Drive project.
Again, Paula, I'll ask if there's anything else you'd like to add for this particular project.
This is separate from the renovations to Timberline. This is the Timberline Drive project that was funded with the TIF monies.
That's correct, and this is part of the property that we purchased in
From the
cooperation
church.
with the city
To
of Grapevine
redo.
as well. They're
We'll
gonna
redo
put
the parking
the
lot.
fire station
fire station.
on the front part of the property, and then we did the Timberline Drive work on the back side of the property.
Correct.
Recommendations for the Board of Trustees to approve the deductive change order number 002 for Timberline Drive project, and returns $52,960.26 to the district.
Do you have a motion for the recommendation, please?
I move we accept Dr. Ryan's recommendation.
Thank you, Becky. In a second. Jesse, thank you so much. And any questions?
I've got one.
Uh-huh.
Well, first, it's a lot more fun to get money back.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you know when the fire station's gonna start? When the city's gonna start construction on that?
I do not know that.
Because I know a lot of Timberline families were using the area that's gonna be the fire station for parking and dropping off kids last year, and that's gonna impact the flow a little bit whenever that happens, but it's an area that it's really not for use for that, but.
I think they may have discussed that at their last council meeting, but it may have only been the fire station that's up near me, so I can't remember.
But that shouldn't be the issue with the drive, now that we've got the
No, but they'll,
drive project.
but they'll have it, they'll be using it.
There's still families that will park there and their kids will walk up from there. And I don't know if we've talked with the city about when how that construction is gonna work to make sure that they're not bringing a bunch of trucks in when school's letting in or letting out.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll
They have
coordinate all
not broached that conversation with us. I would expect that they would do that once they're getting ready to start moving forward with that.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I know they care about the safety of the kids too.
They do. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Move on to item L, act on the Texas Association of School Boards policy update 113, affecting local policies.
Yes, and so, as per usual, we provide the board several policies to be updated. This is from TASB. For most of the recommendations, Paula, anything else that you'd like to add for that, please?
This particular update, 11 of the local policies are revised, and that was in your packet. But the thing to point out is board policy FNF local, and the district did not accept the change, or the recommendation is to not accept the change exactly as it was proposed. That is the board policy that includes the district's random drug testing program. Because we'd not had a chance to understand the reason that TASB was recommending changes to it, we simply opted for those changes not to be removed from our policy, which are really more procedural. And it is true that you typically want procedure and regulation and not policy. But we are accepting the changes that TASB made to this particular policy, which are based in case law, because this is also the same policy that addresses searches of students and their property and all of that. So those pieces were important to be included, but we asked them to put back in, and so what you have before you is our policy with our random drug testing process in there, and we may come back and look at that at a later. So it's approving update 113 with the exception of FNF local, which is based on the administration's recommendation.
All right, thank you, Paul. The recommendations for board trustees to add, revise, or delete local policies as recommended by TASB Policy Service and according to the instruction sheet for TASB Localized Policy Manual Update 113. Except board policy FNF local. The recommendation is is to revise board policy FNF local as presented by the administration.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Do I have a motion?
I move we accept Dr. Ryan's recommendation. Do we need to explicitly state that we're accepting FNF local?
I think with his recommendation.
No, the
Okay, okay.
recommendation includes it,
Thank
so
you, though.
should not.
Thank you, Becky. And a second?
I'll
Jesse,
second.
Second, discussion? None? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. And that is it for our action items tonight. We'll move on to item F, update on the 2016 bond program.
Thank you, Lowell, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Dr. Ryan, Board, thank you so much for having us tonight. As you've seen, we've starting to complete the process on the projects we started a couple of years ago, and we have more here tonight to give you an update on. So for less, no little more to do, we'll get into it. The multi-purpose activity centers at CHHS and GHS, where the concrete driveways, the hammerhead, what we call turnaround, has been replaced and repaired. We're still working through some items with the graphics on the stairwell walls and looking for a company to help solve that, working closely with Joris, the contractor on that project, to get that resolved.
So the company that we did, the second company no longer is?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. They were unable to perform as they said they were. So we still having the same issues and problems with that graphics. Yes, sir.
Yeah, question regarding that same thing.
That was in the update.
I know it was. My question is, so when are we gonna move beyond that? And my point is that maybe we need to look at other alternatives. We've been messing with this now for a while, dealing with those graphics. Maybe we need to do something else with that wall and leave it as it is and not incur the cost. And I know if we've already put money out, I guess it's just getting old. I mean, now we're into the third company now, and they're still trying to resolve the issue, and they can't seem to quite get it right.
Well, it's a combination of multiple things. It's not, you got the graphics as part of it, but then you also have the preparation of the wall behind, and it's been a combination of all those different factors. And also working with Joris and trying to make sure they understand, and we work with them to get that corrected properly. Again, y'all have already expended money for that. We want to make sure you're getting exactly what you need that's going to fit the look of that facility. You're not expending any additional funds or money to get it right the way you paid for it the first time. So we're just really trying to make sure that that's
We haven't extended them any extra money in that. The funds that are still within that, we haven't given them 100% of their funds for that as well, so.
How much have we spent so far then?
I'd have to look at the pay app to see what the percentage is on completion for that, but I don't have that off the top of my head right tonight. If that's something that the board would like us to look into a different option, we can definitely entertain that, so we move forward past that. But we're dedicated to give you exactly what we said should be there from day one, and we're still there to work through it.
Is this the same company that's gonna be doing the graphics at the stadium?
It is not the same company that is contracted with, by Lee Lewis to do the graphics in the stairwells at the stadium.
Okay.
This is their second subcontractor that's attempted to do the graphics in the MAC. It is a company that we have had experience with in the district. So we are surprised that they are unable to be able to accomplish this. I understand your frustration and the time. One of the things I want to point out is that we continue to be, and Huckabee continues to be tenacious in basically getting this punch list done, even if it's been a year in the works, and basically getting in our facility what was promised to us by the subcontractor. Certainly if it's the desire and interest of the board for us to consider something else on those walls, whether that be a painted graphic as opposed to the type of graphic that we're looking at, we would have to entertain that. And I'm not sure this is the contractor that we would want to necessarily do that with, and that would mean a separate expense potentially. So there would have to be a lot of other conversations with this contractor about where we are in this process. So I'd like to be able to provide that information at another time.
Now, let me ask you, so in terms of the graphics at the stadium, those haven't been completed?
Those have not been produced or installed, that's correct.
Okay. Do we have any assurances that some of the issues that we encountered, to your point, not only with the graphics, but the prepping of the walls, are we gonna have do we know whether those issues will be issues at the stadium as well? With graphics there?
When you say the prepping of the wall, are you referring to the block wall
Yes.
versus the fact that we'll have sheetrock in the
Sheetrock.
stairwells at the stadium?
Exactly.
So it is a different substrate.
Okay.
I'm not gonna tell you we have assurances or guarantees. You know, I mean, obviously the contractor has to stand behind this work and getting it to what it is that we want and expect, which is not to be able to see seams in our graphics when you're looking at them. And these are sizable graphics. You've seen the size of those walls, and
Right.
you don't want this. There are going to be seams, but they shouldn't be as obvious as what they are.
Right. So I guess then my other question is, so what are our next steps? Or what timeline are we looking to where we say, okay, let's look at Plan B then? Obviously, what we've been trying to do for the past year is not working. We've looked at different contractors and it's still not working. And so, two questions. One, what are the next steps? And then two, what kind of timeline are we looking at?
We haven't discussed the timeline as of yet. I know there's been a conversation about a particular item that we believe will help this situation. I think it has to do with more the prep of the wall behind. We're gonna try to schedule a meeting with the contractor next week, and we'll probably have a more definitive time frame on that at that meeting. So I can report back through Paula what comes of that meeting, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting old.
I understand.
Yes, definitely echo your sentiment on that.
Thank you.
We've issued direction on Joris for a solution on the unit heaters. We had a couple of them that were not functioning properly, and so our electrical engineer went out, investigated a solution, has provided direction to Joris, and that direction has been issued to them, so we should be able to get that fixed and off the slate. The landscape architect also made a site visit and has made documentation on all the plantings that have not survived, and so we'll be delivering that to Joris for replacement as well. Again, those are at no additional cost to the owner. Those plants have a warranty on them that they're supposed to survive a certain period of time, and so that'll all be taken care of.
Okay, before you move on,
Sure thing.
that third item that you were looking at with the unit heaters at the MAC, that's
sir.
only an issue at the MAC and not at the PAC?
I believe that is correct from my understanding of how the issue has been described to me, yes.
Okay.
Cannon Elementary School, all the landscape has been installed, the outdoor amphitheater has been completed. The exterior masonry at the front porch has been completed as well. The graphics should be delivered later this week for installation. That's the one at the top of the learning stair and the one after you come in the front entry and turn around and look back at the entry wall. Those are the cityscape graphics. So those are scheduled for installation hopefully by the end of the week, first part of next week. So it should be finishing up really quick. And then now that they've got all the exterior landscape and masonry in, we can do our punch walk of the exterior of the building as well and turn that list over to the contractor. I have a couple of pictures, the front entry with all the masonry around it and the building obviously down in front, so you can now drive through the parking lot and see how the building's gonna function and look on the first day of school this coming August. And then also just kind of a side view of that outdoor amphitheater, stage and seating area, so you can kind of get a sense and idea what that, those images we showed long ago, the vision coming to reality.
I don't know if you've driven by Cannon lately, but if you haven't, I would encourage you to do so. It looks really, really nice.
Well, thank you very much.
Can I ask
Go ahead.
a question
Yes,
on
ma'am.
that? So the graphics go back to the graphics.
Sure.
The graphics at Canon look
Are
great.
great. And the
So why
contractor that's
can't we
doing the
use-
that's my question as well.
Okay. So
And
we're-
we've made multiple.
It's a different substrate.
It is a different substrate. There's a block, at the stairwell, there's block, and so it's a little bit different. They have to skim coat and do some other things with that to make it nice and flush for those graphics to apply. As opposed to a drywall finish that you can sand and smooth out, what they call in the industry a level 5 finish. So you can put a graphic on there to not have any blemish or whatever to be seen in it. So, but it can be done on both though.
So putting that,
Should.
like, we're beating a dead horse
I know.
again.
Just
So,
just have
so
questions.
putting that type of finish on those at the Max and the Pack, that won't work? A different type of finish?
No, you mean, or I guess clarify.
Well, I guess,
Putting drywall on the
Yeah,
block
to make the
wall.
walls.
yeah, to make the wall,
Wrap
to where the
walls
graphic
different.
won't create all the issues, because you were saying that part of the issue with the Mac and the Pack is.
But it's just having these, the right person that has the experience to do that. To, someone that works with drywall all day long, they know that product and that. Someone that works with block, you might have to bring a different person that has that expertise to bring that level of finish to it. It's not, something that we're asking out of the ordinary to be done. It's just trying to make sure the right people are there at the right time to do the right job.
What you're asking is if you can put drywall on top of that brick. No, you gotta put a channel on there.
Yeah.
Stand it off an inch, and then you gotta put drywall, then you gotta tape and bed it and mud it, and then float it.
So not
Well,
comparing
It's-
apples
I
to
mean,
apples
no,
here.
you're not.
No, I understand that. I guess, I'm just still looking for thinking out of the box here and trying to figure out some way that we can try to resolve this and put our heads together and come up with something other than, all right, we're trying to look at a different contractor. So anyway,
Yeah.
we've already beaten that one,
Well, a
so.
lot of these graphics are going on windows, like the entrance to schools, and the level 5 finish like he's talking about. It's tough to have it, because you've got air pockets behind that.
Well, the windows and all that are done. All
I
that
know,
looks
but what I'm
great.
saying is the surface of this
Right.
block, it's dimpled, and so you've got air pockets. It's like, think of a golf ball.
Sure.
And it's got dimples, so it's not adhering to that and peeling, and it won't look smooth. And that's the difficulty of it. I'm trying to finish that out.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem at all. Mustang Panther Stadium renovation, stairwell graphics, have been provided, they're the mock-ups. They're in for district review. And once, I guess the company has enhanced the images as much as possible. And so we have some graphic samples for the district in Huckabee and everyone to review, so we'll be doing that this week. and if approved, the graphics will be put in production and installation immediately after that. We're still working through the punch list items with Lee Lewis. They are still fine-tuning audio visual equipment and the scoreboard system. If you've been around when they do that, you can definitely hear it. So it's working really well, but they're still just going through some last little tweaks. And then a mock game simulation was held today to prepare for the upcoming season. So they're getting ready.
It went well?
Yes, I believe so. I wasn't. I don't know. You tell me.
He's only smiling.
I wasn't there, so.
So today went well. We showed up first with Alan Smith and some Grapevine police officers. First to identify the new areas of coverage for our D&L security officers that we have present, and then also our Grapevine and Colleyville PD that we have on site. We needed to identify, because it's a brand new home side, see where those areas for each are going to be. Doing that now instead of on September the 6th. Second was just identifying the signage that we currently have, putting it all out to see from the outside, okay, what are we missing? And so we've identified a couple of signs, but for the most part, everything went really well on our end. And then Rowdy and his crew was working on the technology side, and I don't know how that went.
Thank you.
The summer 2019 renovation projects. Grapevine High School, the tennis court refinishing is underway. The fire suppression is finishing up in the Learning Commons. The rooftop units start installation on the 18th, and they'll be trimming those out starting later this week on the 25th. The chiller and cooler were delivered today, with installation to begin shortly thereafter. And as always, we still are going through, as renovation is occurring, working on the DDC control and kind of tying all the systems together as we go through renovation through the summer. The framing for the controlled vestibule is underway. They'll be starting ceramic tile installation this week, and various and assorted areas. And then we have millwork arriving for the Learning Commons and the new entry vestibule the week of July 29th, so next week. At OC Taylor, the framing at the Learning Commons is ongoing. HVAC grills will arrive this week, so as they're putting the ductwork in and starting to put ceilings in, we'll be able to set those in there as well. The units will start installation on the 25th, and began the installation of the windows late last week, and so HVAC controls is ongoing. So as the new units are put in, the controls will go in as well. Ceiling grid install in the cafeteria is complete, and the ceiling grid in the Learning Commons has begun this week. So you can see all the stuff above the ceiling, and the HVAC units will go in and they'll put the grid in. Glen Hope, ceiling grid installation is complete late last week in the Learning Commons. They're painting this week in the Learning Commons with ceramic tile work to begin again this week. A lot of things going on this week there. Millwork to arrive by the end of the month for installation, and the framing for the vestibule has begun, and the data and fire alarm rough-in was installed late last week. Silver Lake, the crane is on site to set the new HVAC units, and the curbs for the rooftop units are roofed and completed, so they're ready to receive the new units when they arrive. They're being set on the roof. There's a picture of those. So the old RTUs or rooftop units won't be taken off until we get the new ones put on, so we make sure we have some redundancy there. And then the overhead electrical, we're waiting for some delivery of the light fixtures, but the ceiling work in the Learning Commons is complete, ready for those fixtures when they arrive on site. They're painting the Learning Commons, finishing up probably some last minute touches there. Flooring delivery and installation to begin this week, and the framing for the vestibule has begun. Dove Elementary, curbs are now set on the roof, and installation of the units will begin this week. Inspections on the framing plumbing and electrical have passed, so that's, we're ready to start double siding and in the learning commons. That means closing up the walls and getting it ready for paint and other finishes. Fire alarm controls, work there is gonna begin on July 29th, and the doors and the hardware begin installation the first week of August. Tape bedding and texturing and painting to begin this week. The ceiling grid begins the week of July 29th. Plumbing trim out and electrical will start at the end of the month. And fire suppression also will begin at the end of the month with window installation and ceiling tile to follow. Grapevine Elementary, you can see there's a nice pad there for a new elementary addition to go there. Inside the building, we've done the framing for the controlled vestibule, began last week, and so that continues on. MEP trim out to begin this week in certain areas throughout. Flooring to begin early this week as well in the existing building. The ceramic tile in the corridors, reworking of some of those areas to tie that into the existing began last week. Millwork is going to arrive in about 3 weeks, so that second week in August, somewhere in that area, should be getting millwork on this campus. And ceiling tile installation is awaiting a light fixture delivery at this campus as well. Colleyville Middle School, we've poured the entry vestibule slab. It's had its inspection, so it's ready to go. As soon as it cures, they'll begin the framing of the vestibule along with electrical rough-in, and then the mason will be on site the week of July 29th, and DTC controls are currently being installed at that campus. Cross Timbers, the new entry porch has been inspected and poured, so again, as soon as it is cured, or here pretty soon, they'll start the framing if they haven't already, and the mason and electrical rough-ins will start on July 23rd, and the ceiling rough-ins and sprinkler rough-ins begin later this week on the 26th, and then at the end of the month they'll be taping and bedding those areas. Answer any questions you may have.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
And Paula,
Ma'am.
I know our frustration level is nowhere near what yours is. And what y'all's frustration level is the same, but it would be nice if we could find out if there's some other avenue we can go down.
Yes, ma'am.
Instead of the graphics, so I
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
that.
Thank you.
Move on to item M, item N, GCISD pre-K update.
Yes, this is an exciting update for the board. I think most of us remember when the board considered adding pre-K at a little bit different level. We had the meeting at Colleyville Middle School, and Dr. Shiver went to work immediately after that, and eventually we added Christy Brown, and Dr. Shiver's selection of Ms. Brown has been a game changer for the pre-K program, and we've continued to upgrade it every single year, and we're excited to present this to you this evening. Dr. Shiver.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Ryan. It is always exciting to give what has become the annual update for pre-K, and I very well remember that board meeting when we first talked about the vision for pre-K in GCISD. And each year I like to commend the board in kind of stepping out there and moving forward with what at that time was a 5-year vision for what would become the GCISD pre-K program. Over the course of the presentation tonight, you are going to hear huge celebrations because that vision has been attained. And within that 5 years, and along the way, many things to celebrate for that. The vision that we set out, while at the time we were definitely within LEAD 2021 and fulfilling many of those strategies. However, the vision for pre-K exemplifies LEAD 2.0. So while I am biased with pre-K, and I will admit that fully and very passionate about it, but definitely already ahead of its time and meeting some of the very items and goals that have been set in LEAD 2.0. As we talk about the celebrations, you're going to see that many of them have been accomplished. Want to do a little bit of a history. In 2013-14, at that time, the district was fulfilling what the state required, which is to serve eligible students in a half-day pre-K program. You voted as a board to move forward with the vision for pre-K in the beginning of the 2014-15 school year. The first part of that vision was to enter into a partnership with Child Care Associates. And we completed that partnership. And in fact, this past year in 2018-19 was our first year to fully support all of our teaching staff and have all students attend full day pre-K. So when you look at this graph, the substantial celebration and what has happened in those years for the students that we are serving through pre-K, to go from serving under 200 students in a half-day required program to a partnership that served means along the way to allow some partial full day, and that's why you see the bars split. We had some students that were attending half-day, some students full day through that partnership, to this past year that we just completed and having right at 300 students attending a full day pre-K program, more than doubled the instructional time that the students, the 4-year-olds, are able to have. And the learning that you're going to hear Ms. Brown talk about in her part of the presentation, that's been a success for that program. Really, again, just commend the board in moving forward with that vision. We anticipate in the 19-20 school year serving around 360 students. To date, through tuition, employee students, and eligible students, we already have 309 students registered as of today. That far exceeds any number of pre-K students that we have had enrolled in GCISD on July 22nd, certainly in our history. We know that we will continue to have eligible students, and we also have room to add tuition students as we approach the beginning of the school year. Talk a little bit about House Bill 3. More than any other year that I can remember in legislation, pre-K has been a highlight. Talked about more and the importance of it. So much so that legislation moved forward with requiring a full day pre-K. That's exciting in that GCISD is already doing that. We fulfilled that vision, and the year prior to the state of Texas recognizing that that was important for our 4-year-olds to go to school for a full day, we're already doing that and accomplished that. So there's really no change in that for our requirement. We were already meeting that. What did House Bill 3 mean for us? It will mean some changes in the collection to tuition. Eligible students and our tuition students, all students in GCISD, will go to pre-K full day. Previously, because pre-K was not required for all students full day, we did have our eligible students paid partial tuition, depending on their eligibility. Now that this requirement is that all students should go a full day, we will no longer collect tuition from eligible students. They were paying partial tuition, so that is one change. So ultimately, in our tuition program, we will be collecting less revenue for the tuition program because our eligible students will no longer be supplementing the basically extra half day that we have been providing. Now, due to our collaboration with Diane Mooney and our great budgeting within the district and our conservative approach to budgeting, that is not going to make a difference for our budget at all. So while we know going into the school year there is going to be some of that tuition that we have been collecting that we will not for that partial day, it is not going to make a difference in what we can fund through our tuition program. So that's the good news. Part of House Bill 3 was to add an early childhood allotment. That early childhood allotment is basically mixed into that funding formula. So it is not set aside. That is ultimately providing funding for the full day pre-K program. We will continue to provide funding for the full day pre-K program through our tuition program. It will continue really being budgeted in exactly the same way. No impact or help from House Bill 3. What we have been doing from our general budget, and you'll see in our next slide, we will continue to do through our staffing. So what has changed in our staffing? We went in 2013-14 from 5 teachers. Well, how did we have 5 teachers and about 180 students? Keep in mind that that was a half-day requirement at that time. So a teacher taught a half-day up to 22 students. Those students went home. Another 22 students came in, and they taught a different set of students. The value of our teachers being able to be with their full class for the full day. You can see the transition there. The red portion of the bar graph is during our time of partnership with our child care associates, which we were able to move away from this past year. And you also see that our eligible students across the district has remained fairly steady, around 180 students each year. So our funded teachers for our pre-K program from our general fund has also remained steady, which is at 6 teachers and teaching assistants for the program. The growth of the program has been fully supported through the tuition program, and that's where you see the yellow portion of the bar and the growth of the staffing through that program as well. A little bit more of a breakdown in the budget. To see the difference as we continue to increase our enrollment. And I find it pretty astounding, and again, I'm biased, I will recognize that. But to go from half-day program that was not generating any funding to, in 5 years, $845,000 that funds a full-day program for all of our students. And in this next year, with the increased number of students through tuition, we anticipate moving over the $1 million mark in tuition. What does that do for us? Notice the general funding part of the budget remains exactly the same. All of the growth in this next year will go toward adding FTEs for those tuition classes, in addition to setting up all of the classroom furniture, classroom supplies, curriculum. We do not ask our students to come with a supply list at the beginning of the year. Everything we do in pre-K is funded through our program and not a cost to the parents or to the district other than the general funded positions. So that's very exciting information about our budget. However, the real excitement of the program is in the growth of our teachers and what we see happening with our students. The board liaisons were mentioned a little bit earlier, so did want to give you the opportunity, if you are seeking other ways to engage with your campuses, that you are the liaison. I invite you for the first couple of weeks to join your campus that might be supporting a pre-K program. For instance, Timberline.
It is awesome.
Timberline has 4 pre-K classes, and I like to say it's like stepping on a fire ant bed at the beginning of the school year. And real joy whenever you see the end of the school year and the growth that happens. So would encourage you, if you have some time, the first couple of weeks of school, it's definitely something interesting to be a part of and very rewarding.
I'll have to say that, like I used to think, like when my daughters were in kindergarten, like when you're a kindergarten parent and you see them at the beginning of school and you're like, oh no. And then you see them at the end, you're like, I think that's the biggest year of growth a kid has because they're introduced to so much. When we had pre-K at Heritage Elementary School, my kids went to school, and I'd go in there and when I was a watchdog and see them, you're right, beginning of school, they're everywhere. And at the end of school, I went in and it was Dress Like Your Favorite Book. And so they had, kids had glued dinosaurs on their shirts and it was just awesome. And they were working in groups by themselves. And it was just like, wow, I'm walking into, these kids are better behaved than the 4th and 5th grade class I just went in. I mean, it's awe-inspiring to see them there and for us to get them that early. It's awesome.
I think if you're having a bad day, you go to pre-K.
And you walk in and they're like,
you're just,
someone's new, there's a visitor.
Yeah.
And you're there to see them.
That's right.
Specifically.
That's
They're
right.
excited about them. It is, and you give 4-year-olds 4 lunch choices to make on their first day of school. And so if you choose come at lunchtime, that's when we really need the extra support. But we're happy to have those small problems, and I just wanted to tack on to Dr. Shiver's celebrations and thank you for the vision that you had to have this program ready and available for when it's now required. And we're in a good position, and we're excited to share some of the good news that has happened this year, and some of it as a direct correlation to the extension of our day and having all of our students full day in GCISD pre-K. We're very excited. So one of the things that we got to do this year was a little bit of community involvement with Read for the Record. We partnered with the Rotary Club, and we know a guy that's on the Rotary Club, and he helped us get a sponsorship to participate in Read for the Record. It is through Jump Start for young children, and they have a national day, and it's where everybody reads the same book at the same time. And we had 15 volunteers come and participate from the Rotary Club and read to our classes. They also purchased around 320 books for our students to take home, both in English and Spanish, so they could take those home and share those with their families. And they were very excited about that, very proud of that. One of our teachers at Silver Lake, Carla Zamudio, she participated in a Twitter challenge with Raise Your Hand Texas using the hashtag #ThePowerOfPreK, and she won $500. She posted a video of one of her students reading to his friends in class, and so she got $500 through that little Twitter challenge to spend on her classroom. We were very little excitement there that we don't usually get to see. You give a teacher $500 and they think they've won the lottery. GCISD Grapevine Elementary's Natalie Finch, pre-K teacher there, was selected as the Elementary Teacher of the Year for Grapevine, and then went on to be selected as the District Elementary Teacher of the Year. So we are very proud of Natalie and happy to have her on her team, and honored that a pre-K teacher was selected as the district's elementary teacher of the year. And they can't all be teacher of the year, but they are all pretty amazing. And our teachers, without our teachers, none of the good things that have happened, the growth of the program and the growth that I'm going to show you later, would have happened. They really, truly are committed to the mission of serving in early childhood, and they work hard and they're passionate about what they do. So they are a tribute. It's all to them, the growth and the success that we've had. We have been able to partner with C&I. Tony Zahn helped us get in touch with Kathy Bartholomew from the Fort Worth Museum to help us integrate STEM activities in the pre-K curriculum. She came and led some of our professional learning and helped teachers create experiences for the students in tinkering and making, and specifically working on things that they can find around the house or everyday items so that they can apply that learning. We heard Jennifer talk about application of learning earlier, and we really want them to be able to share that with their families and take it and use it at home as well. We also use what's called a swivel to film some lessons. You stick an iPad in this device and it follows the teacher around. They have a lanyard that's a mic, and it allows you to video some lessons and allows our veteran teachers to share their experiences with some of our newer teachers without losing any classroom time instruction. This was very handy at the beginning of the year when we had new teachers going. How do you get them all to do the same thing at the same time? So let me show you. So I go to a more experienced teacher, and it's once you see someone do it, then they can apply it as well. They also participated in classroom visits. I'm really proud of the teachers and how they have formed a community and a team of pre-K teachers when they're on 8 different campuses. That's not easy to do, and they've done a really good job of that. And part of that is through classroom visits, going to see their friends learn and sharing their experiences. And they also share a lot on Twitter. We would do Twitter challenges where they could share ideas with each other and maybe get entered for a prize, which would be some special Play-Doh or something for their class. They will work for Play-Doh. They were excited to participate in those as well.
Christy, can you go back, please?
Yes, sir.
So on the right-hand side, there's a picture, and I just want to mark this because we've been talking about using our space at Mustang Panther Stadium for professional development opportunities. And so, as you see, that's the pre-K team, and they're on the film deck at Mustang Panther Stadium. And I just happened to be walking through whenever they were doing some professional development, and they were, it was a great space for them. It was a great size of a group for that particular space, and so we have utilized that quite often. But I just wanted the board to realize we talk quite a bit about adding that particular space for professional development for our teachers, and our folks have used it quite a bit. In fact, I see Kim Farbus and some other PTA folks that are in the room. And our Council of PTAs has also utilized some spaces at the stadium for their meetings, and it's allowed us to kind of tell the story of the stadium, and then quite frankly, the pre-K teachers probably wouldn't be at the stadium if it wasn't for this opportunity for there. So, the vision of what the board wanted for this to be a community facility across the street over here is personified in this particular picture on the right-hand side. So I just want to mark that for us. So thank you, Christy.
At the end of the year, we talked about some highlights and our best moments, and this was several of them. Being able to go up in the stadium, and Dr. Ryan, Dr. Schnautz, and Dr. Shiver came and just shared how much they appreciate their hard work, and they kept saying, "We just feel so special." And so I was excited that they feel special, because they deserve that. I want to share a little bit about the academic growth that we have made this year. So all of our students are represented in either English or Spanish. They are tested in their language of instruction, which is determined based on their home language survey and their language testing before they enter school. And the green indicates the percent of students that are on track, and I don't know if it's pink or the not green, is the percentage of students who still need support. And so the first graph is beginning of the year followed by the end of the year testing. So these are just some of the areas that we test for beginning, middle, and end. But I just wanted to show you the growth that they make. Dividing syllables and rhyming, those are, we always teach ABCs and letter sounds, but we know that these skills are also important in students learning to read and understand later. So
Excuse me, could you repeat that again in terms of, so what assessment is used to determine?
It's called the CLI test. It's the
Okay.
Children's Learning Institute,
Mhm.
based out of Houston. And it is the only test that I'm aware of that tests all of the domains that are related to early childhood, that address the pre-K guidelines. So we test motor skills, social emotional development, letter naming, sounds.
So the foundational skills, your phonics and phonemic awareness, and,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Those are the skills that they're expected to know when they get to kindergarten?
Yes, sir. So all of these are indicators of kindergarten readiness. So as each graph climbs closer to the top, that's the higher percentage of our students that are ready to hit the ground running in kindergarten, and make more growth in kindergarten as well, because they don't have that getting used to school and learning how to do school time.
Right.
And these are just a few of our math benchmarks that we check throughout the year. And we're using this this year as a baseline for our data, because it is, like Dr. Shiver said, the first time that we've had our students all day with our teachers. And so we're really using this as kind of a measuring stick to make sure that we meet these benchmarks or surpass them in years to come.
The progress is outstanding.
We're proud of their progress, and the teachers mentioned, one of Miss Malinowski at Timberline was just at the end of the year and talking about celebrations. She said she said, I did not know how much having them all day would help, and the impact that has made has been outstanding.
And you might have stated this, but on the previous graph, and it might just be that one right there, that color coding, the red, is there any significance in that versus, other than what you've just mentioned in terms of their growth?
No,
at
sir,
the beginning?
it's just the percentage of students that still need support versus the percentage of students that have met the benchmark.
Yeah,
that
but
are on
so the
track.
fact that you're using color red doesn't, okay.
No,
got it.
sir.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I see very interesting on some of your graphs how much lower the Spanish-speaking students start versus the English-speaking students.
Mhm.
You know, one of the things that it was pretty surprising to me, just moving to the U.S. from Puerto Rico, is how much, you know, the U.S. parents really read to their kids when they're really, really small, while in Puerto Rico they probably put us in front of the TV. And I wonder if you guys have done any research, asked questions on why the Spanish-speaking kids are so much lower just starting. You see the growth is outstanding of both groups, but it's very curious. I mean, you can see counting, shapes, letter naming, where it's a huge difference starting when your kid comes in at pre-K from a Spanish-speaking family to an English-speaking family. You have any
Yes, sir.
ideas on that?
Part of pre-K a lot of times is as much about educating the parents as it is the students. So once we get them, we start educating parents on how to educate at home. What we think to be the biggest difference is we do have some students that qualify for pre-K that speak English, but all of our tuition students are tested in English. So that kind of skews the data a little bit
Mhm.
whenever the majority of those students, what was it, 110, are usually coming to us from some other type of preschool or daycare program where they've been introduced to letters and shapes and things like that.
It's very encouraging that the end of year results are comparable between the groups.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
And I just want to remind you that Puerto Rico is part of the United States.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we talk about with our teachers.
Because he's in the
is,
States.
is if there is a gap, if there's a performance gap, it's gonna be at the very lowest when they're in pre-K.
So you're saying this is mostly because it's more of an economics issue where it's English-speaking parents are putting their kids in maybe like a two-day a week program, others day out type of thing, then a
Yes,
3-day,
sir.
then a 4-day.
It's
So
just the exposure.
Okay, so along those lines though, are you saying it's more language versus content or more content versus language? For the simple reason that, I mean, a Spanish-speaking parent could be talking to their child and that child could be very well versed in their colors, but in Spanish.
Correct. And
But what you're saying is then, but the instructions in English, so we're trying
sir.
to,
The instruction's in Spanish. I
in
was just-
Spanish about Spanish phonics and Spanish, because, I mean, the two
Yes, sir.
languages are very different here, so.
Yes, sir. Our native Spanish-speaking students are given instruction in Spanish and tested in Spanish.
Okay,
I was just stating that all of our tuition students are tested in English. While some of our Spanish-speaking students do come from affluent homes and good homes and have had the exposure, we have a good 100 students that we know in the English-speaking category that have probably been in some other daycare type setting. And that's just our best guess, is that they've just had exposure to these skills before.
but the testing is in Spanish for the Spanish-speaking students,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay.
but for, okay, I'm missing something then, though, because, so for your tuition students, are those youngsters tested in English and in Spanish, or just,
No, so they're just tested in English.
So why would we
If they
not-
qualify in Spanish, then,
I'm sorry?
if they speak Spanish, then they qualify to be in pre-K. So
You don't
they
need to
would
pay.
not be a tuition student.
Yeah, that part I get, but the
Okay.
fact is that you can have a Spanish-speaking student whose language, what's the word that I'm looking for? Their grasp of the language is lacking. And just because they're either Spanish surnamed or they speak Spanish at home doesn't necessarily correlate. So I guess what I'm concerned about is in terms of, are we just assuming that because they're Spanish surnamed or they come from a Hispanic household that they are the prevalent or predominant language of Spanish, would that they're stronger in that than they are in English, or vice versa?
We do the language testing before school starts. Is
Yeah.
that what you're getting at? I'm sorry.
So prior to a student being placed in pre-K,
Right.
they go through our language assessment center.
Right,
And
okay.
at that center, before ever entering the classroom, they have a language assessment. How they perform on that language assessment are they performing better in English or Spanish?
Now, is that oral or written?
Oral.
Oral.
It's oral.
That's what determines their instructional language. So if the student, through that language assessment, prior to entering,
Is
performs
strong in-
better in Spanish,
Then the
then they're
instruction
going
will
to
be delivered.
receive their instruction in Spanish, yes, sir.
Okay.
And if they perform better in English. So ultimately, their home language survey is the first step. Home language survey signifies that they need a language assessment. It's the language assessment that determines their language of instruction. And then their language of instruction matches how they are assessed, so that we're actually assessing them in how they're receiving the instruction. So the gap that you see in any of the charts isn't about are they being instructed or assessed in the proper language. We are taking care of that, and that's guiding us from the very beginning before they enter their instruction. The gaps that we see are about exposure prior to entering kindergarten. You can have a student that they may be very fluent and have a developed language, but the things that they converse with in their family and their home really aren't the learning things that they're being assessed over. That student may actually show a very high social emotional pre-assessment. So those are some differences that we might see. For the most part, what we see is the difference in the beginning of year assessment in English and Spanish has to do with their prior exposure to some type of experience, day school,
Right.
daycare, so that they've had some form of exposure. It also has to do with devices. I mean, we can't really go very far to a restaurant and a store and see very young children with devices in hands. So there are some economic influences in that, in which children have influences to learning devices, even if their parents not sending them to daycare. So those are some of the things that we are aware of as we continue to look at some of the differences in their pre-learning. Our goal for their assessments is by the end of year assessment, and several of you have commented on the growth of those bars from beginning of year to end of year, substantial. We want them to be as close to 100% as we can, because what that tells us is they are kindergarten ready. So if we can get those end of year bars up to the top, they are ready to begin learning. I don't recall if Christy's already shared, but what we have looked at is our students that attend pre-K at the end of their kindergarten year are far advanced over their peers that did not attend pre-K. So by basically 2 years of that instruction, you really can't tell that they may have started pre-K without those beginning skills.
Particularly in our Spanish-speaking students.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. Let me ask you this question. So as far as your assessment, so there's a pre-assessment. How often then are they tested? Is there a midterm assessment and a end-of-year assessment to showcase the growth here?
Yes, sir. So the first bar is the beginning of the year, and the second is the end of the year to show their growth. We also test in the middle.
Because you see, and I totally understand in terms of what we're doing with pre-K and our K, but then that also impacts the literacy in terms of our elementary students, and that also impacts then middle school as well as high school. And then we start to see those youngsters that are starting to drop out, and we start to see those sub-pops that are starting to suffer. And again, if you look at all the other charts that we've seen from other programs when we talk about assessments, whether it be STAR or anything else, we notice that there's that trend that these youngsters that have a strong foundation, literacy foundation early on, yes, will do better. But I guess the question we've always asked is, are we able to identify those youngsters that are struggling, say, in pre-K, and then be able to see that indeed they're not the ones that are falling into that lower third of the tables or charts that we look at going forward. Does that make sense? Do you all understand what I'm trying to
So
get across?
absolutely, the end of year assessments that we have and the data that we have on the students that attended GCISD pre-K, that moves forward. Our kindergarten teachers will have access to that. So they know from day one, if a student ended their pre-K learning not fully kindergarten ready. So that teacher knows that I may have a student or group of students that didn't know all of their letters when they came.
Right.
And so they don't really have to do any assessing, they do beginning of year assessing. But they're able to hit the ground running when we've had that student in pre-K with knowledge of what are any deficit skills that they may go ahead and start working on.
Okay.
So, so I want to make sure I'm understanding two things. Number one, what I think I'm hearing you say is that we have a cohort of kids, typically the tuition-paying kids, who were enrolled in some other program before they started our pre-K program, whereas we have another group of kids who this is the first time they've been in the classroom, is essentially what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am.
The second thing that I am noticing is that on all the charts that you've provided, actually by the end of the year, the Spanish-speaking students are achieving more than the English-speaking students in all of the categories except for the shape recognition. So it's looking like whatever y'all are doing over there is overcoming or adding to whatever previous experience or not experience at all that the kids had before they arrived. And this is pre-K 4, I'm assuming is what we're looking at, not pre-K 3. This is just pre-K 4.
Yes.
Okay.
And just to remind you, as I mentioned earlier, this is, and Christy said, this is our baseline data.
Right.
This is
Yeah,
the
this is
first
1
year
year,
we have
yeah.
data that all of our students attended pre-K full day with GCISD teachers. So this is our first year to also be able to see what does that mean for their kindergarten success as well. So being able to see that we have our native Spanish speakers that have, one, grown as much as they have in 1 year, but also to have almost no discernible learning gap to start kindergarten ready, we anticipate is going to make a substantial difference in what our kindergarten results look this coming year.
See, that indeed will be very telling, because I mean, you can showcase growth. I mean, growth is growth, but the question is that growth, are these youngsters that are a deficit, in some cases, are they making up sufficient growth to level the playing field? Because yes, if both of them grow, that's okay. It's almost, for example, let's take a sixth grader. And if that child is, if you take two sixth grade students, and one of them is reading at a second grade level, and the other one's on grade level, the question is that during 1 year, they can both show growth.
Correct.
But the question is that if that youngster only shows, who's at second grade reading, only shows 1 year worth of growth, and the sixth grade student shows 1 year of growth, you still have that gap. So the question is that, when we show this graph, is that student that's reading at second grade, is he or she gonna be able to make up 2 and 3 years growth in order to eventually catch up? Does that make?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so my question is, if we're talking about foundational literacy skills right here at pre-K, and we're showing this growth, are we, when we look at English and Spanish, are we looking at the same criteria that in terms of, when you say kindergarten ready, have they acquired kindergarten readiness? Are they proficient readers? Will they be able to read when they get into kindergarten and to first grade? Have they secured, whether it be English or Spanish, have they secured the foundational literacy skills for them to be able to take on that task? And that's the question that I'm asking, because I can see from the charts, yes, and there's been growth, and I totally applaud that. My question is, though, when we're talking about growth, are we comparing apples to apples, or are we still looking at apples and oranges?
So, yes, this is something I preach all the time.
Okay.
Is that students who come in not performing as well as their peers, growth is not okay. They
Right.
have to make more growth than everybody else.
Good.
And this is apples and apples. And so
Okay.
this green indicates meeting benchmark, on track, equivalent to on grade level. So this percentage of our Spanish-speaking students that are on grade level or really ahead of grade level, ahead of the game coming into kindergarten is what you see here. Not growth based on where they started, but growth based on meeting benchmarks of performance.
Good, okay, all right,
And
thank you.
Because
that-
this is
that-
the benchmark year to have all of our students full-day GCISD program, we obviously know the students that attended GCISD pre-K. We'll be able to take that forward and also monitor their success as kindergartners. So next year, at this time, we'll be able to demonstrate also with data, how did those students continue to perform as they move forward in kindergarten, which I think is the essence of what you're asking.
Exactly, yeah, because when Shannon stands up here and gives us the reports and the results, one of the things that we always look at is that achievement gap, especially when we talk about our sub-pops and students of color. So because of that, I guess my question is, are we looking at that beyond just, and I think you stated that precisely as to what I was looking for, beyond just growth for the sake of growth? Are they securing the necessary skills, though, and the skill set to be able to respond to kindergarten and first grade and second grade and going forward?
Yes, sir.
And the
'Cause
answer is yes.
I feel like a big indicator of our success as a program is not just how much they grow in kindergarten, in pre-K, but how they continue to do in
Yes.
kindergarten and first grade. And so that's something that we're tracking as well, to make sure that they continue to perform or outperform with their peers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another thing that we have been able to improve upon with the extension of our day into a full-day program is social emotional learning and being able to play well with others. And so this are just some of the things that some of the campuses have incorporated conscious discipline. You see this on the right. You may have seen that video on Twitter, but she's greeting her friends as they come in, and they get to choose how they like to be greeted. They have fist bump or a high five or a hug. And many times students come to us with no previous experience in social skills. They may have just been with mom or grandma and not have ever been out of the house. And so we learn how to be good citizens and play well with others and take turns and problem solve and manage those strong emotions that happen when somebody takes something away and mom's not here to solve that problem. So that's been a huge benefit to the extension of our day as well. And this is one of the things I'm most excited about. Play really does give children a chance to practice and apply what they have learned. So our teachers, we have worked in PLCs and talking about creating experiences for our students, because we know that that's the best way to really, for them to internalize their learning is to touch it, see it, do it, and that helps them build their vocabulary and grow in their academic skills as well. So we create these experiences, and we met as a team and talked through the themes and look at what do we need to make this happen, how can we simulate this, how can we give them an experience that they can also apply their learning, but they think they're playing. So it's a bit of a play on purposeful play. We ordered supplies, and we're fortunate to have the revenue from the tuition budget to be able to provide these experiences, because when you touch a flashlight and put the batteries in, that's different than looking at a picture of someone using a flashlight. When you turn the lights out and get in the tent and pretend there's a campfire, that's different than watching a movie about it or watching a YouTube video about it. You see back there's a little fishing pond. So they will go fishing, but they're fishing out letters, and then they write those letters and match them to pictures with beginning sounds. In the flower shop, they're taking orders, they're counting money, they're writing things down. You may not get the right change back, but they are getting the concept, and they get so excited. One of the favorites that they had this year was a Whataburger. So for our Texas Public Schools Week, all of the other schools are doing their Texas Pride Week, and so our teachers, our pre-K teachers, wanted to participate in that, and a couple of our teachers decided to do a Whataburger station, and that was a huge hit. They made burgers, they counted money, they took orders, they had customers and workers, and it was a lot of fun. And they didn't realize that they were practicing all the things they'd learned all year. And we worked with the communications team to help share the good news of pre-K, and they did a great job of really capturing our vision and our mission and being able to share that with the public. So I want to share that with you, and then if you have any follow-up questions, we'll be happy to answer.
So I do. So going back to data, so this is we have 1 year's of data, 1 year's worth of data on full day pre-K. So earlier this evening, we talked about math, and we talked about telescoping in our students, and then we've talked about some of the bridge programs that we have during the summer in the hopes to be Algebra I, Algebra II, or to Precalculus, etc. So my question is here we are getting, data shows if we can get children earlier, we have they have a better chance of success, college and career readiness. Are we going to track these students? You just talked about tracking them through kindergarten, and then you heard Jesse say like first, second, third grade. Are we going to track these students and their progression all the way through to see if these students are telescoping or if they're on level, pre-AP or AP, and how, and I know we're asking basically 13 years here, committing to the third year to follow this group all the way through. Is that something that has been talked about within y'all's department pre-K and within?
We do plan to track their progress in kindergarten next year.
I'm asking beyond that though. Because if we're talking about it, because we go all the way, we have our counselors go and our high school counselors go to California, they go to South Texas, they go visit our students that are in college now and ask them, hey, was it worth your time and effort to take an AP course, and did the college accept it? Or did it help with your admittance, but the college didn't give you credit for it? And we're starting these kids on these paths of these telescoping and these bridge classes and AP and weighted GPA, and that's changing at the college level because A&M this year is changing how they look at it. Non-weighted GPA versus just regular GPA. So are we going to track these students all the way through to see the success of this program?
Certainly from having this benchmark year of data, we are able to take that forward with that indicator of having attended GCISD pre-K moves forward with them. So anything we track from this year forward, we will be able to break that into cohorts to say, attended GCISD pre-K, did not. So whatever information we want to search, research, and dig into,
that child will be
we
tagged.
will have that ability to do that.
And that's what, so that tag, that we will follow them through, that they have been in our pre-K. Okay, thank you.
This age group is unlike any other. They have this genuine love and excitement for learning, and every day is completely different.
I mean, it prepares them for not only the academics, but like social, emotional, physical development. We make sure we study our TEKS and look at the scope and sequence of where they need to go and how they need to learn it. A lot of fun, hands-on learning, because at this age, they don't learn like in a lecture hall. You have to put stuff out, let them explore, let them feel it, touch it, and they're learning their senses.
A lot of them have never been exposed to anything related to like school or academics. So like the first day of school, almost all of them are crying, and they have that anxiety from like being separated from their parents. So like you can see the growth. Like now you see them and they have structure and they know what to do, and they like learning.
I choose to keep coming back every year and to work with this age group because they are awesome. When they're 4 and 5 years old, you get to see them learn so much. You can teach an older grade and see a little bit of growth each year, but at this age, there is a giant growth, and they steal your heart, and they love you too, and they come in every morning and give you a hug, and I don't know, you just get to have awesome relationships with these little bitty people that love you back.
I understand as a mom that sometimes it could be hard letting your kid go and be like, oh, it's my baby, I don't think he or she's ready, but they are. Then you see the growth and they gain so much from it, and like they should really give the kids a chance, and the parents should also like try it and see that there are only benefits to this program.
It sets it off. It's the start of their academic career of their life. Oh, it's like you want them to have the best in the world, and you want to prepare them for the best.
GCISD Pre-K, where the best begins.
Any other questions
Yes.
remaining?
So, this is an awesome program, and it's fantastic. What is our limitations as GCISD? We're going from 9 to 12 teachers and going from 750,000 to $1 million. What is our limitations here? Because we're on this trajectory path, it's growing, we're enrolling more kids, going full day pre-K. Where are our limitations that we need to be aware of as a board to expect in the next year to 2 years, so when we hit that, we're prepared so we can keep growing this program and get more students from within our community to give them that head start?
So there are a number of limitations. One thing that we are exploring, as I mentioned earlier, we are continuing to remain really steady around the 180 number of students that meet eligibility for pre-K. We're going to dig into that number a little bit more, do some research with our kindergarten class that enrolls this year, how many students would have been eligible that did not attend. Did they even live in Grapevine, Colleyville last year? Did they live here and choose something different? So the most important thing we want to do is figure out, do we have eligible students that we are not capturing? That's a number one priority that we're going to spend some time digging into our kindergarten data, surveying those families to find out what we can do different to try to increase that number. Our tuition side is limited by, we have to understand that it is competitive. There are other programs out there that are also competing for those 4-year-olds, as well as parents that choose to not send their 4-year-old to a structured program. They do something maybe through their church or through their community organization rather than something that's for pay. So we do feel like, as far as the substantial growth we've seen every year since we started, is going to probably this year is the largest amount of growth that we're going to see, and that jump in tuition. We also have the capacity of our campuses as a barrier, because we can only put 4-year-olds where there is space for 4-year-olds. Now, in the next bond program, I'm sure that we will talk again about the dream of an early childhood center. That would really be one of our only ways that we could expand beyond what the capacity of currently of our elementaries are. For several of our elementaries, we're really at capacity right now.
We're at 8 of the 11, right?
We are at 8 of the 11. We are looking at one other campus. We are constantly looking at the data of our students that are enrolled and whether or not there's enough interest in a particular neighborhood that that campus can have a pre-K or add an additional pre-K class. So we're constantly working with our numbers that way. I do feel like once you reach the point that your number of tuition students and your number of eligible students are close to equal, that is generally in this type of program at almost at capacity, and you don't see a lot of fluctuation past that. So that's, I would anticipate within the next year or two, we're going to start seeing a steady number of pre-K. They'll take that happens. We will enroll kids really up through the first couple of weeks of school. So we do know from now till the first couple of weeks of school, we're going to continue enrolling pre-K. We think we're going to at least reach the 360 mark, but 180 of them are eligible. And that's the number that we really want to grow, because we want to capture every student in this district that is eligible to attend pre-K in GCISD.
So you are at that 180 number right now?
180 is, we've remained constant on that
For your
almost every
eligible.
year. Mhm.
So you're saying right now we're at 316, is that what you told
Uh,
us
we-
earlier?
309 are actually enrolled with everything complete. We have another 10, I think, that have been processed in the past week that aren't complete with their registration, but
So
yes.
if we have families that come in that are beyond that 180, are they turned away?
No, no, that's not our capacity. That's the number that each year has shown to be eligible and has attended.
And how do we get the word to the families who don't speak Spanish?
That's what we're
Spanish,
really,
don't speak English,
yeah,
that
that's what we're
there's-
really trying to dig into this year. And so one plan that we have in place is to look at our kindergarten enrollment within the first month to 6 weeks of school and see what kindergartners are eligible for the National School Lunch Program, because that's what determines pre-K eligibility. If we look at our kindergarten class that is eligible for the National School Lunch Program, how many of them attended pre-K? And then the ones that didn't. Those are the families that we didn't reach last year. We're going to reach out to those families.
That's what I'm asking.
Mhm.
How are you reaching out? Because I know
Well,
there's.
we'll have their contact information because they're registered for kindergarten.
No. I'm talking about the ones that need to come
Right.
into pre-K.
We need to really figure out from the ones that we do have access to why they didn't attend. That's our first step. So if they are in kindergarten but didn't attend pre-K, and we can understand why they didn't attend pre-K, we believe that that will inform us about what we need to do different, as you say, to go find the ones that are not attending. What are we missing about our communication?
Because I know our community outreach center right here, that would be a huge area. Because this year, our number of 3-year-olds are coming into the reading program during the summer. If there's more 3-year-olds this year than anything. So that right there to me would be the ideal. The parents are not speaking, they don't speak English at all.
Right.
So these 3-year-olds are coming in and.
Some of the things that we've done in the past, that we continue to do to increase our enrollment of eligible students. We seek out the different housing authorities.
Through grades or the community centers. where
Yes.
We're focusing.
So we will take the pre-K flyers and the information to the different apartment complexes, the different housing, to be sure that it gets distributed. We're not just relying on, did you check our website? Did you check social media? We are actually going out and trying to make sure. The best is word of mouth for our families that have attended pre-K, that come in and register, and go tell your friends. So truly the lack and the process of that language assessment center and the students that come in and qualify, that's our best outreach. That works very well at Timberline to bring in our eligible students.
So they come into us to register?
Yes.
Have we thought about going out to them to register?
We have in the past. We have actually had registration for Timberline at the community center. We've actually talked about doing an out in the neighborhood registration on our for our campuses that we know tend to lag behind in their registration process. So that's something that we've been talking about for a couple of years, that we're always looking at ways, how do we get our kids here sooner so that we're better able to prepare.
What's our student-teacher ratio in our classes?
For pre-K?
Yes.
It can be 22-to-1. That is a teacher and a student. Any class that has 16 or more pre-K students also has a teaching assistant. So it's really 11-to-1 as far as adult person and little small person.
Okay. I just want to grow this program.
Me too.
And I just sit here and I think about it, but then I think about our demographer report, and then, capacity within our schools, and then I think about, every, 3 to 5 years, we have 2 years of kids that come through that, the population bumps up, so we may go from 3 kindergarten teachers to 4 kindergarten teachers that year, and so then we have to staff at that school, so we have capacity issues in rooms.
Actually, since we've started our tuition program, some of that has leveled out, because if we're able to get them in through the tuition program, we have fewer people that seek other alternatives for their kindergarten program.
Y'all are doing a fantastic
Wonderful
job. This is
presentation.
we're winning at this.
And this is, I mean, and this is key. We capture them here, and, I mean, then the sky's the limit. Because that's, if we can catch them early, and then all the data shows you that, and we know that, so you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Of that 309, that is just pre-K 4-year-olds, or is that pre-K entirely? How many's in our pre-K 3-year?
So we do not have
We don't have
pre-K
that.
3-year-old. What we do have is an early childhood program that is through Child Find. So the only students that we have that are younger than 4 years old would be captured through basically our special services program and Child Find.
That's what, sorry. I got
No,
confused there.
that's-
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Probably a lot more questions than you anticipated.
Oh, no, we were ready.
No, yes, you were. You were. Thank
Y'all
you so
did
much.
a fantastic job.
Move on to item O, random drug testing.
So Jay is approaching, and so this is the report that we have for our random drug testing program in GCISD. Jay, I'll turn it over to you.
He's probably nervous that there's going to be this many questions.
I first have to figure out how to work the technology. So good evening, trustees, thank you. So the first thing that you'll notice on this, this is the annual drug testing report. First thing that we've done is kind of revamped and updated what was likely a bit of an outdated document. It needed some revamping, and we've added 2 slides that are informational, and then we'll get through that. Okay. So first informational slide is just what we do. So the drug testing occurs from September to May. We test monthly at each high school campus, and we test on the same day unless there was some weather event that, or something that just prohibited us from testing at both campuses. But we schedule both campuses to be tested. One will be at 9 a.m. and then the second one for that day will be at 1:30 p.m. And then we alternate those so that each month the same kids or the same teachers or programs aren't being hit at the same time. So we try and flip those back and forth. Testing sessions are typically an hour to 2 hours. Probably on average we're an hour and a half to 2. But again, that's dependent on getting the kids to us, and then it's all on them at that point. So we're there until we're done. The lab sends us 65 to 70 ID numbers. From that list, we target 40. Our goal, our target number for each campus per month is 40 testers. So we get 65 to 70, and that accounts for kids that are absent, field trips, at the end of the year, seniors that are no longer participating, and hopefully we can hit our target number for that month out of that group. And then it just kind of breaks down for the annual report. If we can hit our target of 40 tests per month at 9 months, that'll give each campus approximately 360 drug tests. And then just to kind of break down, the FNF local says that we are to test between, or no fewer than 10% and no more than 40% of those eligible for testing. So if we hit that target of 360 tests, roughly give or take year to year, we have about 1,250 students that are eligible for testing. That puts us in that 28th percentile, which is right on the upper end of that middle portion. So if we go much more, we'll get closer into the 30s and near 40. If we go any lower than 360 tests per campus, now we're getting down to that lower end. So we're trying to stay in that middle area.
May I ask a question while we go?
Yes, ma'am.
Testing 9 a.m. 1:30 p.m.
Yes.
So if you're testing at 9 o'clock at Colleyville, you're going over the same exact day to Grapevine at 1:30?
Correct.
Now, in the past, I don't believe we've done it that way. Because what would keep Colleyville kids at 9 calling Grapevine kids at 1 and letting them know it's coming, and the ones that are going to be tested thought that they did something that day and they
Right.
took off?
So There is no foolproof system. You're absolutely right. I think we've done this now for 2 years.
On the same day?
On the same day. I know for sure we've done it 1 year. I'm pretty sure we did it last year as well. The first 2 years I was in this position, we did them in the same week. I think you have the same thing. As soon as they've hit the first school, you know that they're coming at some point later that week. I don't know of a system. I'm open ears, so I will definitely look into any suggestions that we have, but we're trying to do the best we can to get the testers here. They're coming in from Tyler, and try and hit at that same period. I mean, one point
That's
there
a great question, though, because we should know how many of those 65 to 75 student IDs had their butts in their seat at 1:30. And if they took off, I would almost suggest that that would trigger an automatic test.
That to me is a, anyway,
Yeah.
that's something for us to look at, I think, for this
Correct.
next year.
Okay.
How much are we spending on this? What's the cost of us doing
Per
it?
test is $15.50.
$15.50?
So if you multiply that by our average of 720, that'll give you a rough approximate, and then that's per, well, not per campus, that'll be the total. So it's 360 tests for the year
So
on
what's the
average,
total?
times 2, 720 tests, and that would give us a rough estimate.
Hold on, we're doing the math.
Gotcha. I think we're right in that 12 to 13,000.
$1,580 at $15.50 for 360 tests.
Times 2.
Times 2. So there you go. 11,160.
Thank you, Louis.
And we've got a percentage of 1.54 this past year.
Yes, sir.
So $11,000.
I think we brought this up possibly last year, because I think it's Carol that implemented the opportunity for parents to opt their kids in at $15 a pop. Have we explored any more of that idea of allowing parents to, to opt in? I mean, that.
Well, we were doing that for middle school too, weren't we?
Well,
Was that for middle school parents
yeah,
could opt in?
yeah, but we're not testing middle school kids. That was another question I was gonna, yeah. That I would be more than happy to test the middle schoolers, because particularly, I know we're jumping ahead. We've gone through this presentation, this is year 14, right, yeah. So, I would, the middle schoolers, I think we're missing is, please refresh my memory. Is there some reason why are we not testing the middle schoolers?
I'll be honest with you, I could not answer that question. I've not been part of those discussions.
Okay. Because
I was thinking cost was one, but.
Cost would have to be one, I
But
honestly
I
don't.
think cost was one, but we were gonna, have parents that opted to have their middle schoolers do that. But and yes, not to get ahead of your presentation, but we've seen this, we keep seeing it over and over, and we keep seeing almost the same results.
Which is okay.
Well.
Since, we're not.
But I still think that there's a lot of things, I'm questioning the process more so than the end result, because to Lisa's point, I mean, if we're sending out and we're doing it, again, we looked at everything from we'll do it on a Monday. Well, no, on Mondays, don't do it on a Monday because you will catch a bunch of them from the weekend, so all of those issues have been brought up before. If you're doing it at one high school in the morning, don't do it in the afternoon at the other high school because they all find out. So my question is, we're spending money. Are we getting, and it's not, our goal here is not to catch as many kids as we can. Our goal should be to deter as many kids as we can in terms of their lifestyle as far when it comes to drugs and alcohol. So are we doing the best in terms of what we need to be doing to assist in that task and objective?
So
Because if we're basing it just on the numbers, I can tell you, it doesn't look like we're getting the return on the investment.
So you're asking about the process, right?
I'm asking about the process, I'm asking in terms of the kids that, you know, the kids are looking to beat the system. There's always gonna be, yes, is there a system that's 100% perfect? No, there isn't. I understand that, but
And I wanna clarify something. We are not the ones, because you said something a while ago, they come from Tyler.
well, the testers do.
Our lab company.
So the lab company's sending it to us, and then we are the ones administering these
No,
tests.
no, no.
No,
Who's,
no.
that's what I need clarification on.
Right. So here's the process. In a couple of weeks, I will be communicating with the 2 high school principals that are assigned to drug testing. And then their job will be over the next few weeks as we ramp up to school, and then that first week of school to draw those ID numbers from all the programs that are listed in FNF Local. They then take they use their data clerks and they get all the programs, spits out an Excel document. They then delete all the information except for ID numbers. They send me that report. When I get that report, I check to make sure that I'm only looking at ID numbers. There's no tabs at the bottom with any other information. And once I've clarified that that's all that's on there, then I send a report for Grapevine High School and then a separate report for Colleyville Heritage High School to the lab. It's THE Lab, and they're out of Tyler. And then monthly, their worker sends me that list of 65 to 70 ID numbers. They send it to me for each high school. Then I communicate that to the assistant principal at each high school. They then get in Skyward and start running the numbers to figure out who they're making testing day. All of that happens anywhere from a day to 3 days prior to the actual lab technicians coming to collect the samples. We're just there getting kids into the restrooms. The technicians do all that work.
So technicians are coming from Tyler?
Correct.
So it is a scheduling deal too, that if we did it different days, we would have an added cost for them to come out here.
Do we?
Okay.
Yeah, that was a
It's the
question
same.
I had.
It is the exact same cost whether they come on Tuesday and Thursday, or to do each school, one Tuesday, one Thursday, or if they come the same day.
If there's no additional cost, I would really like us to look at the fact that we're not doing both high schools on the same day.
Okay.
Because to me, that just, think back when, to me, they're telling each other what's going on.
Right. And I will tell you, in the first 2 years that I was in this position doing random drug testing, we did that. We had the same issues. The other piece of the pie that let's say we get into our winter months, or for some reason we have some sort of school outage and we've tested on Tuesday and they were set to come on Thursday and we're not able to come for a bad weather day. Now we got to try and get them caught up to stay. We try and keep them test 30 days out, and it impacts us down the line. So that was one of the reasons we went to the same day, is to keep, if we're testing at one, we're testing at the other one, and there's no weather impacting. If we have to cancel one and reschedule, they're both getting done that day. That's one of the pieces, but I do understand. I don't know the best system to. And they hit their phones as soon as they see people. As soon as they see us roping the areas off.
Are there
It's just kind of one
other
of those
firms that do the same thing that are here in the Metroplex versus Tyler?
I'm sure there are. I've not
Have we
looked into
explored
other-
that?
I've not looked into other firms because we've not had a problem with getting
Well,
this.
this group has done a
company
great job
here.
for us for a long time.
They've been very good to us.
Yeah, I understand that, Dr. Ryan, but the thing is that if you look at the data and, you know, and here it spells out, I mean, I think it's a situation where if it's cost, it's restricting us to be able to show up at a high school and then the other one in the morning and the afternoon because of cost, because they're having to come in from Tyler. I mean, that makes no sense.
I believe they said there
There's
wasn't
no,
a cost.
there's no additional cost.
Well, I mean, but okay, so then why is it that maybe we say, okay, in this week, you come to this high school, 2 weeks from now, you'll go to the other high school? So why, I guess that's why I'm asking about the process in terms of what's to keep it, I mean, if we're talking about a random drug test, what's to keep us from making it random then? Really random? I hear something, somebody say something?
One thing I have to factor in addition, so you got the weather issues, but when we have Thanksgiving break, and we have 2 weeks of Christmas, and then we have spring break. All of that, and then testing, all of those time periods in all of the months that we're dealing with impact when we can test people. And so if we start stretching it out and we do Colleyville Heritage one day and maybe 4 or 5 days later we do Grapevine High School, and then that could turn into, we've got some testing issues. Now you start getting this widespread and we're not able to keep them on the same. Right now we do almost everything the same. You'll see the tested numbers are almost identical. I'm happy to explore other options. This is just how we've done it.
Have we seen anybody leave? Have we thought, hey, listen, this is a problem. We need to fix that. And we've got our principals that are here.
We had a student this year that we pulled him out of class and he took off.
We had one.
But he,
That counted as a
but he's also
right.
He was
Right. So I know that we all think that we have a problem, but I'm not sure that we do.
I'm not saying we have a problem.
And I'm not saying that either.
The question
I don't
is.
know, other than that one, I don't know.
No. And the question is not, did someone book on you? The question is, you're having a test. Now, Mr. Denning, have you noticed on that same day, I mean, is even anything you looked at? On that same exact day, did you have not a bunch, say 5 kids disappear?
No, because I think with that, you have so many numbers of kids who are involved in extracurricular activities that possibly could be drug tested. The chance that that kid's gonna be drawn and his buddy at Colleyville Heritage got drawn too, that they're having I mean, I would think the odds of that, but no, we haven't seen that. I mean, the biggest one is, if we have it, trying to get them that first period, getting in from athletics, making sure we're rounding the kids up. But I haven't seen anything where we go in and there's 15 kids who aren't there in the afternoon session.
Well, it goes back, is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No.
We don't have an issue getting our number. Now, there are months when we're dealing with testing or some sort of special
field
trip or something where we have to make up the next month. So, but by and large, we can hit in between 38 and 42 without a problem. That tells me we don't have a big issue.
So from your standpoint, the two high school principals, do you feel like the program is working and it's successful and that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing?
I've done this every month for 4 years. I actually prefer it the way we did it, doing them all on the same day, because it keeps both campuses aligned, which I think has been fairly important in everything that we do. And as far as
but the thing is, we're not saying that we've got an issue. We're not saying we've got a problem that's unidentified. All we're saying is that if we're making this commitment, this investment, and committing these dollars, regardless of the firm, are we maximizing that to the fullest? And are we getting the return on the investment? And that's what we're saying. So we're not trying to raise the alarms and saying we've got a drug issue here in one school versus, that's not where we're going with this. All we're asking are questions based on the data that we're looking at here. Is what we're doing working, and if so, is that a good way to spend our dollars? And if not, have we looked at other alternatives? If we have a company that's closer in town that can provide us expanded services beyond what the Tyler Group does, maybe that's something we need to look. That's all we're saying. We're not pointing fingers. We're not trying to make issues of things that might not exist. All we're trying to find out if, in turn, for our investment and what we're committed to as far as the random drug testing policy that we have, are we maximizing its potential? That's it.
So in my opinion, our goal, we operate this as a deterrent. My opinion is we are successful. The kids know when we are testing, and I think that's the key. And just having that out there that they see us, both at Colleyville Heritage and Grapevine, they're kind of back out of the way, but students know when we're testing. They can, during the passing periods, they pass by, we've got it blocked off. I think that's good, that they see that we are testing and they see, people go in there, and I think talking about it's good because every one of our kids that's in one of those groups knows that they could be called. And if the goal of our program is to be a deterrent, then I think we're accomplishing that. Now, when we actually get positive results, we don't get a lot. There's a reason for that. Get to that in just a second. But when we do get those positive results, now it's our time to go and provide the help that we need or that we can give to those kids. That's outside of my department, but I can tell you the process that they go through. We identify those, they go, first of all, their parents are going to find out, but then they're going to go see one of our counselors and get the help that they need. And I think once we've identified, we've done the best we can with the deterrent, we identify and we get them the help that they need, and hopefully then fix that path down the line. The problem with the data that I think you're referring to is not in how we test or when we test, it's in the window that these drugs remain in their system, and we only test once a month. We see marijuana because it stays in their system longer. These other drugs that are, I'm gonna skip this slide. I think we've talked about it, and I'll get to this one. So these are the drugs that we test for specifically from the chart from the testing lab. 90% of these drugs are in their system for hours, if not 1 to 3 days. Well, unless they're doing that drug the weekend prior to the week that we're testing, we're not going to see those drugs. We're going to see marijuana more often because it stays in their system longer, and that's just a fact. So it's not that the system's not working, it's just that we're testing once a month. If the system is to find more and then be a help to those, then that once a month has got to increase, because you've got to find different ways to hit the smaller windows for detection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so, you know, I've got my second one in high school now, and, you know, Meredith got pulled 3 times in 1 semester. So a couple of questions and observations. What I would really like us to see is I get your point, you're only testing once a month. And I think the amount of work that you have to go through to pull those 40 kids is not inconsequential, right? I mean, if we started saying, hey, why don't we do it once a week? I think these 2 guys over here would kind of go, oh, wait a minute. But I would like to see us explore ways to increase the number of students that we are testing I mean, if our policy allows us to do 40%, let's do 40%. And if there's a way for us to allow parents to opt in, I really would like us to explore that. And then the third thing, and I guess that's up to us to answer the question is why we aren't doing middle school, is to go ahead and include those middle school kids that are in UIL activities. Or is it UIL or just GCISD extracurricular? I can't remember which. We've got the distinction there, but
it's mainly all of your athletic side. You have fine arts side with some UIL academics.
Yeah.
And some other.
That I think. I not that I'm hoping we'll catch more students, but in a way I am hoping we would catch more students, right? Especially I'm concerned about our middle schoolers. I just know anecdotally, and because it's middle school, oh my gosh, those poor kids, you're just so glad they survived 8th grade, that's an area that I think maybe we're missing some opportunity to, as to your point, once you get a positive hit, to counsel those kids and maybe even catch them earlier. And so I don't, again, in practice with having 2 kids over at the high school, from my perspective, the process has seemed to become more refined. Like you said, doing everybody on the same day, and seems to go pretty smoothly. But I would really like us to see us increase the numbers. And I know we're very budget sensitive, but when we're talking $15 a test, I know as a parent from my perspective, and maybe this is something to talk to some of the booster clubs about as well, that you know, that's not an insurmountable amount for me to say, then put it on my Skyward bill and put my kid in the pool at some point in the year. That's just my thought.
You said something about catching. When we started this, when we first started this was not about catching kids. This is about keeping them from doing it, number one, deterring them from doing it, but to give them counseling.
Right, yep.
And so that's always been our goal here, was with those two things, to keep them from doing it and to counsel if they are.
Yeah.
I don't mind, I wouldn't have any problem upping it, but I do think if we're gonna spend that kind of money, up it meaning going to 40%. If we are gonna spend that kind of money, I just wanna make sure, I'm sitting here looking at that chart, you said we've been doing it this way for the past 3 years. Well, the year that we weren't doing it on the same day, the number was higher, the ones that we did have test positive, but we also tested more kids. I think we went from 20 down to 10, down to 9.
Yeah.
So is that because we weren't doing it the same day? So there are some questions I have on that I'd like for us to look at. We appreciate, because I know it's a headache for y'all to do it. I know for the principals and for you and the teachers, but again, our goal here are the kids, to make sure the kids are taken care of.
Right.
I really would like for us to, Dr. Ryan, to relook at this and up the number and to change it to a different process.
Well, if we're gonna do that, then we also need to look at if it's about getting them the help so they don't go down this path versus
I agree,
catching them.
and that is part of it.
And so my question is you mentioned that it's not your department, and can someone speak in the room to, okay, first time offender, is it counseling, all parents are notified, counseling, and I think it's a 30-day suspension from all sporting, is that correct?
From all activities, from whatever they're involved in. So first thing, we do have parent voluntary opt-in, that is in F&F local. That is in part of the handbook. I don't know how we communicate that, just to be absolutely honest with you. But they could opt in now, and their ID would just be put into the random. In my 4 years, we've not had that happen.
Right. Well, I wanna go back.
But
Go
to
ahead.
your question, so the process, when we get a positive, it's gonna come to my office. If it's an illegal drug positive, then I call the assistant principal for that campus, let them know what they've got, what the levels are. Then they make parent notification, and then they make the notification to the counselor. Is that Robin? All right. Robin and Mary, so Robin at Colleyville Heritage and Mary at Grapevine. And then, doesn't matter what level it is, first, second, or third, they have 3 visits with the counselor. And then they automatically are on the next 3 testing sessions. First offense is 30-day suspension from whatever activity they're involved in. There's no different in the second offense, except for the suspension goes from 30 to 90. They're still gonna be seen by the counselor, still get parent notification. The difference is in the total number of days.
All right, so I heard you say whether it's first, second, or third offense, parents are notified, staff, counselors notified, and they have 3 meetings with the counselor for each offense, for whether it's first, second, or third. And it's 30, 40, 30, 90. So my question is, if we're really trying to help these kids, and whether recreational user or stay off a path that they don't need to go down due to poor choices, why are we punishing a student or an individual for 30 days and putting a label on them and not allowing them to play or be involved with that sport? So now they have egg on their face. They've gotten caught publicly, and of course, and all kids are going to be able to figure it out pretty simple. Versus keeping it between the counselor, the coach, or the band director, or the cheerleader sponsor, and the counselors in terms of that. I would like to see what our district and the results from other districts are, because I'm sitting here because we're putting a label on a kid in that standpoint. And then what does that do to them from, when we talk about social emotional standpoint, and you're punishing them, I'm not saying, hey, give them a slap on the wrist, but there's a question here. You're moving something that is keeping them involved, and we know that involvement in extracurricular activities has a higher graduation rate and keeps them out of trouble. So where it's counterintuitive here a little bit. So I would like us to look at some of this and.
There's gotta be repercussions for your actions though, Louis.
I'm not,
mean,
I
it's
didn't
not
say
a-
I didn't say there wasn't, but I'm because there has been some studies and some things done. I was talking to some other school board members at other districts, and they're changing some things and looking at different punishments in terms of that versus a one-time offense or a repeat offense. So I'm just curious of like, if we're really trying to get them down, how are we counseling? What does the data show? And so forth from that standpoint.
How many of the positive tested came back the second time with a positive test? None, right? In other words,
You're talking about if you've tested
right,
positive once?
you got 9 kids, you caught 9 kids this year, and then you retested them 30 days later, right? And did any of those retest positive?
So I can't answer with the next testing period, but I believe, and I could get you the answer for sure in an update, but I believe one of those 9 was a repeat offender in this same school year.
Okay.
But I couldn't tell you which one of the next 3 it was, but.
Oh, okay, got you.
But
Okay.
I think only one of those is a duplicate, the rest are single.
Okay, got you.
Refuse to test.
So refuse
What
to,
happens then?
it's a positive, it's a level 1 or whatever level they're on.
Okay.
So if they've already had 1 and they took off running, they're a level 2. It's treated the same as a positive result.
Any other questions? I think this is something, that we need to.
Yeah, so what I've heard is that we need to look into it. We need to look at some comparisons. We need to see what other districts are doing. We need to see how we could alter this. I do appreciate Jay and especially our assistant principals because it is a huge distraction of what that person thought they were going to be doing that day, as far as our administration goes. And so if we expand this, we need to take into account possible impact of personnel, of additional personnel, because that is a real thing. That for every hour that we're having to work with students about this is an hour that they're not in the classroom, that they're not helping teachers, that they're not doing other things that we need them to be doing. But we'll look at it. We can't do it before school starts. I want to manage expectations about that. So we're going to keep what we've got for now, but we'll look into any kind of adjustments that we might need to make, and we'll bring that back to the board when that's done. We'll use a participatory process to do so. We'll also look at other districts about the level of student, whether it's middle school or whether it's high school, and if there are other districts that are testing at middle schools, we'll talk to them about whether they feel like it's being, the program is being useful to them, or whether they feel like that the high school only is the way to go. So we'll look at it, we'll study it, we'll do a good job, a thorough job of being able to compare from people not only just in the Metroplex but also around the state of Texas, and we'll bring back the information that we find to the board.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate
You're welcome.
We'll move on to item P, review owner contingency expenditures.
Yes, we've just got a couple of additions for the owner contingency expenditures this month. If you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer those.
You have any questions? Move on to item Q, review 2019-2020 board planning calendar.
So on page 384, you see 2 different changes to the July part of the board planning calendar. That one's moved to August, one's to October. Other than that, no changes.
Any questions?
I'm sorry, the 2 items, one is that board operating procedures,
Right.
and we're moving that one to August.
Yes, sir.
I think the other was.
Do we have to, is there anything for us to do to that prior to that coming up?
Y'all just same as what we always done. They'll be sent to you ahead of time, look at them and make
Okay.
suggestions and then talk about it.
Okay, all right.
And I think the other thing was the team of 8 was moved. And that was in July because this last year we
And,
had to have it.
yeah, and it came to us as a possible date. Has it been firmed up?
What's
The,
that?
the team of
No,
eight?
team of eight.
For October?
I was using reserve dates. Oh,
I
The reason
got you.
I
Okay.
moved it, because we all have our reserve board dates, so they should all be on our calendars.
Right,
So
so-
if those dates are not good, we need to let Kim know.
Okay, but we don't have anything already scheduled for the Team of 8 training on that date, is what?
The team of eight will be your reserve date in October.
Okay.
We
gotcha.
just don't know, we
We
just
don't
don't
know.
know
Activity,
what
I
that will
cannot tell you.
consist of
Okay,
at
alright.
this point.
I'm just trying to get the date on everybody's
Gotcha,
calendar.
gotcha. Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
So, so the way it is right now is you're shooting for October for that to occur?
Yes.
Okay,
And
for
the
that
sup-
reserve
We are
date?
doing it on the reserve date,
Yes,
is what
we
you're
are.
saying.
Just
Yes.
like superintendent evaluation's been moved to February on that board
Gotcha,
planning.
gotcha,
So
okay.
also put that on your reserve date.
All right, thank you.
Planning ahead.
Yep.
Any other questions? Move on to item R, request for reports to the board. Do we have any? None? Move on to consent agenda for approval. You need a poll? Need a motion? Jesse?
Yes, I move that we accept items A through O on the consent agenda, please.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Becky. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Move on to announcements. Do we have any?
School starts in 4 weeks.
Well, we have, next week, is it next week, the Leadership Academy or
That's
something?
August 1st.
August 1st.
Is, who's attending? Leadership Day. That's
Oh,
8 to
I'll
5.
be in and out. So,
You'll be
in and out.
in and
Yeah,
out?
I'm not gonna be there all day.
Okay.
I will be here if I'm in town.
8 to 5, that's during the work week, yeah. Okay. And remember to read your book, is that right?
That's right, yeah. So
Which one?
everybody's got
Whichever
all
one
three,
you want.
Jesse. You got
All
all
right.
three.
I got them all.
Hey, can you read this one and give me the cliff notes?
Absolutely. I got a lot of windshield time, or plane time, I should say. I text and drive. what's wrong?
Audiobooks.
No, airplane time.
Convocation is coming up.
Convocation's coming up. Also, the tentative date for cannon ribbon cutting is the morning of August 29th,
What day is that?
Thursday. That's tentative. That's not
Okay,
set in stone, but it's close.
Any other announcements? Do you have any announcements?
Well, no, we can do it in August. I was just gonna announce the TASB convention is here in Dallas this year in September. And the North Texas Area Association will have a breakfast that Saturday. But I'll give you all the information, and then we also have our first meeting of the year scheduled for September. So I'll share that in August.
Okay. Anything else?
For North Texas?
Yeah,
North
for
TASB?
the- yeah,
Are
for
we
the
gonna-
North
Are we
Texas
gonna have one of the meetings at Cannon that we weren't able to have last year?
No, unfortunately, we will not. This year, we will only have 3 meetings, and there were other 3 districts that had already asked. And so since we weren't able to make it at Cannon, we were trying to get it for this year, and it just didn't happen, unfortunately. And then we have 2 grassroots meetings this year.
Influence on that committee.
I'm sorry?
Nothing.
Oh, hey, I tried, but, so.
That's it. If we have nothing else, no other announcements, meeting is adjourned at 10:07.
You need a motion.
So sorry, thank you.
I'll so move it, though.
Second. And Becky second, all those in favor? Motion carries 6-0, 10:17. Still got it in.
Still got it.